The realm of trees descends upon the Douluo Continent. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction. So don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 326 Ningfengzi collapses. It was inevitable. Fortunately, the recent events had made the two spirit beasts slightly more friendly, so he didn't have to go through so much trouble. Tang San composed himself. Senior, Duming, he was hunted down and killed by Li Sun. Li Sun? Who's that? Upon hearing the news of the Azure Bull Python's death, Bibi and Xiaogan's eyes widened immediately. They hadn't paid much attention to the Azure Bull Python before, after all, its cultivation was low and it hadn't been under the Beast God's command for long. But now, with the strength of the Spirit Beast camp dwindling, every member had become incredibly precious. Hearing the question, Tang San immediately recounted Li Sun's information. Twin martial souls, 7 100,000-year spirit rings. Bibi and Xiaogang were shocked upon hearing Li Sun's spirit ring configuration. 100,000-year spirit beasts were not only extremely important to their camp, but also to humans. A spirit master who could obtain just one could overpower others of the same level, and now someone was telling them that a young human possessed a full 6. This means that besides the known soul beasts in the starred-out Great Forest, other 100,000-year soul beasts elsewhere have also fallen victim to this. If this human is not restrained, it could bring devastating damage to the soul beasts. Bibi and Xiaogang seemed to sense something and exchanged a glance. That human named Li Sun only has 2 soul rings for his second martial soul, which means that 7 more 100,000-year soul beasts will be in danger. Although there are no weaker 100,000-year soul beasts suitable for him to hunt in their starred-out Great Forest, the world is so vast and soul beasts are so widely distributed that some soul beasts that accidentally advance will inevitably fall victim to this. Moreover, with his current configuration, he has a great chance of ascending to godhood. Could it be that another human is about to become a god? 2 flying swords streaked across the azure sky, leaving long trails of light as they passed over mountains and ridges. Li Sun and Sword Douluo, each carrying one person, were rushing towards Jingxin City. Ever since experiencing tracking the white crane with flying swords, Li Sun had grown fond of this feeling. Having just broken through to level 90, he could fly without relying on the Blue-Silver Emperor's right leg bone, so he decided to practice. Fortunately, with the help of powerful mental energy to fine-tune the process, it wasn't as difficult as he had imagined. After only a few simple experiments, he was already able to fly with Ningfengzi on his back. Noticing Hulina's resentful gaze, Li Sun slowed down his flying sword and followed behind Sword Douluo. Let's see if you can turn around and look at me now. Li Sun looked at Hulina, who tried to turn her head to look at him several times, a playful glint in his eyes. He didn't know what Bibi Dong and Hulina's purpose was, but with Jin Daolia present, the two sides hadn't broken off relations yet, and it wasn't advisable to escalate the conflict. Let him see what kind of trouble these two, master and disciple, were planning. Li Sun's little actions were naturally seen by Ningfengzi behind him. Seeing that his disciple and son-in-law was actually taking the initiative to avoid suspicion with another girl, he nodded in satisfaction. It seems that Xiao Sun and Rongrong have a really good relationship. Ningfengzi thought happily. Although Wuhan City was far from Jingxin City, with Li Sun and Sword Douluo's speed, they would arrive in just 2 hours, even with passengers. It was evening, and many people were preparing to rest. However, with the landing of the 2 flying swords, the entire city lord's mansion became lively again. "Brother, you're back." Ning Rongrong's happy shouts could be heard from afar, followed by Zhu Ziuqing and Du Guyan. "You only saw your brother, didn't you even see your father?" Ningfengzi took a half step to the side, smiling at Ning Rongrong. He hadn't seen his precious daughter for several years, and she really did look different. "I saw her a long time ago." Ning Rongrong hugged Li Sun's arm and made a face at Ningfengzi. "This girl?" Ningfengzi shook his head with a smile. "Why did you come along too?" Just then, Du Guyan suddenly spoke up, looking at Hulina. Although the Soul Master competition had been over for several years, Hulina's appearance hadn't changed much. In addition, as Bibi Dong's disciple, she left a deeper impression. My teacher told me to study with Li Sun, so I came along. Seeing the three girls' familiar interactions with Li Sun, Hulina put on a shy smile, looking down at her toes while her eyes occasionally glanced at Li Sun. Affected, the three girls simultaneously thought of this word, their guard rising as they looked at Hulina. There's a saying that a good woman can't escape a persistent suitor, applying that to men would be even easier. Isn't your master the current pope? Why do you need someone else to teach you? This is my teacher's decision, not something I can control. Hulina's face showed helplessness. Ninrongrong snorted, her eyes filled with displeasure. Why do these girls keep coming here? Zhu Xiaogang and Du Yan are one thing, after all, they've been together since childhood and are quite familiar. But where did this other one come from? Could it be that Li Sun still has contact with Hulina after the Soul Master competition? Thinking of this, Ninrongrong wrinkled her small nose. She was clearly the first one there. She reached out to pinch Li Sun's waist. But given Li Sun's current cultivation level, he realized what Ninrongrong was doing the moment she made her move. He quickly grabbed the small paw and whispered a few words in her ear. Ninrongrong looked enlightened, then her eyes lit up, a sly glint in her eyes as she looked at Du Guyan. You can all leave now. It's getting late. We can talk about it tomorrow. Ning Fengzi exchanged a few pleasantries with Bone Douluo and Poison Douluo. Seeing that Ninrongrong was still holding on to Li Sun, he knew that if he went forward now, he would be disliked. He still remembered the matter of holding his grandson. Then we'll go and rest first. Oh, and someone, take Hulina to the VIP room. Don't neglect her, she's the Pope's disciple. Hearing her father speak, Ninrongrong quickly pulled Li Sun away, wanting to get away from that vixen. This action immediately drew teasing from several elders, making Ninrongrong a little embarrassed. However, upon arriving at their lodgings, the group was stumped by another issue: who would sleep with whom that night. Soon, the three, initially united in their hatred, began to show signs of division. Fortunately, Li Sun was there to stabilize the situation, quickly calming the internal strife. Meanwhile, Ning Fengzi was enjoying wine with Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, and Poison Douluo. After a few rounds of drinks, having lived together for many years, they inevitably discussed family matters beyond official business. When the topic of having a grandson came up, the initially enthusiastic Ning Fengzi argued with Douluo. Douluo was generally quite measured and respected Ning Fengzi, the sect leader. However, he was unyielding on the matter of a great-grandson. Ning Fengzi was initially taken aback, but as a sect leader who had seen many things, he quickly regained his composure. Although he felt a pang of resentment over his beloved daughter's situation, Douluo, being a super Douluo, figured it was good that his granddaughter was with Li Sun. It was all within the family. Immediately afterward, the two began a heated argument about whose daughter would get to hold the baby first. However, perhaps due to spending so much time with Li Sun, Sword Douluo suddenly mentioned Zhu Xiaogang when Ning Fengzi was at his most animated. What? Ning Fengzi was startled, staring blankly at Sword Douluo. After receiving confirmation, he thought of his precious daughter and broke down. Chapter 327 Reunion in the Far North. The next morning, in the luxurious hall of the city lord's mansion, the members of the 7 treasure glazed tile school sat upright in their respective seats, each with a different expression, all ready to watch the show. Even though Ning Fengzi was very satisfied with his disciple, he couldn't help but feel sorry for his daughter, and remained silent. Although he had been somewhat prepared, seeing his teacher remain silent and just sit there staring at him, Li Sun couldn't help but feel uneasy. The 3 women involved stood by with their heads bowed, not pleading, acting as if it were none of their business. They wanted to see how Li Sun would handle the situation. Ahem, teacher, I have to go to the far north next, so I won't accompany you. We'll talk again when I return. Knowing that Ning Fengzi might not be able to accept it immediately, Li Sun coughed lightly, stood up, and walked out. Time is the best healer. He hoped that his father-in-law and teacher would be able to mentally prepare himself by the time he returned. As he passed Hulina, ignoring her flashing eyes, he and Sword Douluo boarded their flying swords. Haha, before the two could even take off, they heard Douluo's rampant laughter behind them. The unchanging white was the constant scenery of the far north. Covered by the relentless wind and snow, the traces of their previous visit had vanished, forcing Li Sun to reorient himself. This time, only Sword Douluo accompanied him. Firstly, Li Sun's strength had increased, He was no longer the frail youth he once was. Secondly, someone needed to protect him at home. Although Jin Douluo acted as a mediator, the mentally ill had a wide-ranging mind, and who knew what Bibi Dong might do next? However, despite being alone, Li Sun didn't feel lonely on this boundless journey. In his spare time, he discussed swordsmanship with Sword Douluo, finding it fulfilling. Li Sun already had a foundation, and with his constantly expanding thoughts and Sword Douluo's guidance, he could feel his daily progress. While maintaining his ninjutsu and soul skills, he also made breakthroughs in his immortal techniques and meditation. Through his clone's continuous research, he was now able to bypass the filtering of his internal martial soul and draw upon the natural power of the vast world. However, this was still a form of truancy-style absorption, resulting in a slow extraction speed. Furthermore, the immortal technique carried the risk of imbalance and required further improvement. His breakthrough in cultivation techniques, however, was significant. Because his clones were fearless of death, Li Sun and his clones were reckless, daring to experiment with any possible pathways. If someone were to compare themselves to him, they might have barely begun their theoretical research before several of Li Sun's clones were already consumed by meridian imbalances. With the sacrifice of one clone after another, a new meditation method gradually took shape. This method, by continuously connecting complex meridians, could generate a greater pull on the energy of heaven and earth, thereby accelerating the absorption speed. Li Sun calculated that using this new meditation method to absorb the primordial power of heaven and earth would double the speed of soul power cultivation. This would be a huge boost for soul masters. It meant that the time it took for a soul master to cultivate from awakening to becoming a Titled Douluo would be greatly shortened, and the requirement for innate soul power would be significantly reduced. Although it was a good thing for humanity, the situation on the continent was still unstable, and Li Sun didn't want to reveal this cultivation method for the time being. He would let his own people use it first or wait until he developed a new technique. Li Sun wasn't complacent about this. His clone continued its research. He felt that even if he revealed the technique later, he would still maintain a leading position on the continent. The blizzard in the far north couldn't stop the two Titled Douluos. Li Sun and Sword Douluo stood at the place where they had killed Titan Snow Demon King, looking around. Although the blizzard was heavy, the damage to the terrain caused by Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, and Titan Snow Demon King hadn't been completely covered. It was much easier to find their way here. Li Sun looked at the distant ice peaks, thought about the direction Ice Emperor had left in, and then took to the air. It wasn't surprising that he was so cautious. Although he had made an agreement with Ice Emperor, it would be troublesome if he wandered around and accidentally entered Snow Emperor's territory. As one of the most powerful soul beasts currently in existence, even a typical Titled Douluo would likely be unable to escape if they encountered it. Even with Li Sun and Sword Douluo's cultivation levels, they wouldn't be a match for it. Upon leaving the territory of the Titan Snow Demon King, the blizzard subsided considerably. Transparent glaciers stood everywhere, shimmering with blue light under the sun. The deeper they ventured, the fewer soul beasts they encountered, and gradually, the ice jade scorpions became more numerous. However, compared to the Ice Emperor, these kin were much smaller, the largest being no more than a meter in length, their tails less than half the size of the Ice Emperor's. Soul beasts that haven't reached 100,000 years of age have extremely limited intelligence. Those like the Blue Silver King are, after all, a minority. Sensing the human intrusion, the ice jade scorpions emerged from the cracks in the hard glaciers, their hard pincers pouncing, ready to strike. Suddenly, centered on Li Sun, a chilling killing intent spread outwards, crackling sounds sensing the aura. The small ice jade scorpions hurriedly scurried into the ice crevices, while the larger ones slowly retreated. Soul beasts are most sensitive to danger. They could sense the threat of death emanating from Li Sun. But just as these ice jade scorpions were fleeing, a superior aura surged from afar. Sensing this aura, the ice jade scorpions immediately stopped their retreat and glared fiercely at Li Sun and Sword Douluo. They're getting cocky now. Li Sun ignored these low-level soul beasts and instead looked towards the direction from which the aura had appeared. Whoosh! In a short while, with a whooshing sound, the Ice Emperor Scorpion appeared on a transparent glacier. Compared to the massive size of the Titan Snow Demon King, she was faster and more agile. The strength of soul beasts is not ranked by size. Sometimes, though they appear small, they can be exceptionally deadly. Ice Emperor, long time no see. Li Sun smiled and waved to the Ice Emperor, while the heavenly dream ice silkworm in his spiritual sea began to stir. However, fearing that the heavenly dream ice silkworm might anger the Ice Emperor, he didn't release it for the time being. Long time no see? What kind of long time is this? Human cultivation speed is this fast? How long has it been? Sensing the aura emanating from Li Sun, the Ice Emperor's heart churned. She felt as if the death of the Titan Snow Demon King had happened just a few days ago, and she herself had only slept a few times, yet that human cub was already standing before her again. Isn't the advancement of cultivation supposed to slow down? How come your cultivation speed is so fast? The Ice Emperor asked, filled with complex emotions. Li Sun's appearance meant that her life was about to end. Although her soul had been preserved, whether it was successful, or whether it could become another existence, was still unknown. I should be considered an exception, is that so? Hyote was silent for a moment. What about that worm? Is it dead? Sensing Hyote's hesitation, Li Sun released his spiritual sea, and the heavenly dream ice silkworm immediately emerged from it. Hyote, I didn't expect you would still think of me. I'm so touched. Who's thinking of you? I just wanted to confirm whether this human was lying to me. Hyote swung her tail hook, scattering the rushing heavenly dream spirit, but heavenly dream immediately reformed. I delivered the message you asked me to give to Snow Empress last time. But she told me that if you come, she wants to see you. Okay, I've been wanting to see her too. Li Sun's face lit up with joy. Chapter 328 The Snow Empress's Test. As his level increased, Li Sun could clearly feel his cultivation speed slowing down. This was also a driving force for him to improve his cultivation techniques. However, even with the increased speed of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, it was still somewhat slow at the Titled Douluo level. Therefore, acquiring the soul ring for his second martial soul became particularly important. He had already acquired 2 soul rings for his second martial soul, and the remaining 7 slots absolutely could not be neglected, as this was key to his rapid strength improvement. Li Sun had considered the soul beasts he knew: Ice Emperor, Little White, Ice Bear King, Bear Lord, Biji, 10,000 Demon King, Snow Emperor, Evil Emperor, Emperor Yawn, Deep Sea Demon Whale King, and Silver Dragon King, totaling 11 100,000-year soul beasts. Little White was excluded, as it was not only of low age but also one of his own subordinates. If he also considered the slot that Ice Emperor was about to occupy, he only had 6 soul rings left to choose from. Considering the strength of the previous soul beasts, he focused his attention on Snow Emperor. If he succeeded, the Ice Bear King might even become a bonus. This guy had always been protected by Ice Empress, like a godson, and his strength was by no means weak, on par with Titan Snow Demon King. Ice Empress flew very fast, and soon arrived at Snow Empress's territory. At this time, Snow Empress was leaning against a huge white mountain of flesh, quietly watching her. It was as if she had known about Ice Empress's arrival all along. That human has come. Snow Empress helped Ice Bear King to his feet. Yes, do you want to see him? Thinking of the impending separation, Ice Empress felt a little reluctant. She and Snow Empress had been together for countless millennia, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them family. Let's go, I'll go with you to see him. Snow Empress's expression was calm, showing no emotion. Slowly rising into the air, she slowly came to Ice Empress's side, and Ice Bear King also woke up at this time. In Ice Empress's territory, Li Sun was quietly waiting for Ice Empress's return. It has to be said that he was somewhat excited at this moment. Sword Douluo was observing the surrounding ice jade scorpions with vigilance. Fortunately, this didn't last long. Less than half an hour later, 2 figures appeared on the horizon. Along with their appearance, a rumbling sound echoed in the distance, clearly indicating that some enormous creature was rapidly approaching. As they drew closer, Li Sun saw the legendary Snow Empress. She wore a flowing white dress, had long, pure white hair, and possessed ethereal eyes that seemed to see through the world, resembling an elf of ice and snow. Although she didn't exude any powerful aura, Li Sun and Sword Douluo sensed an extremely terrifying danger beneath her human-like appearance. Even the heavenly dream ice silkworm on Li Sun's shoulder shrank back in fear. Snow Empress, that human boy is Li Sun, the Snow Empress said, pointing at Li Sun beside her. The method for obtaining the Wisdom Soul Ring was researched by him and that insect. The Snow Empress didn't speak, but stood silently in midair, watching Li Sun. Suddenly, a chill emanated from her body, instantly covering the entire area. Affected by this aura, The Ice Emperor Scorpion and some surrounding soul beasts were startled and scattered in all directions. Something's wrong. Ice Emperor, why is this happening? Li Sun's heart sank. His soul power surged, and his killing god domain instantly expanded outwards to resist the chill. Sword Douluo also activated his 7 killings domain. Snow Emperor, what are you doing? The Ice Emperor, also confused by the situation, asked anxiously. Ice Emperor, humans cannot be trusted. The Snow Emperor didn't attack. This was the Ice Emperor's territory, inhabited by many of her kin and subordinates. She waited for the surrounding soul beasts to leave the area. Snow Emperor, I think this method is quite good. Didn't you see that the worm succeeded? The Ice Emperor blocked the Snow Emperor's path. Becoming a god isn't that easy. The Snow Empress shook her head almost imperceptibly. Even if you preserve your soul after a successful sacrifice, if something happens to the human along the way, you'll die too. The Ice Empress was taken aback. She had considered this possibility as well. But if she didn't take a gamble now, the next tribulation would take her life anyway. In the end, she would only have lived for 10,000 more years. But if Li Sun truly became a god. Just as the Ice Empress was stunned, the Snow Empress's aura began to surge. A power no less than that of a human at their peak instantly acted upon Li Sun and Sword Douluo, their domains being compressed, gradually shrinking to only cover an area of about 10 meters around them. Becoming a god isn't easy, but compared to you soul beasts, I still have a very high chance of succeeding. One soul ring after another appeared, slowly rotating beneath Li Sun's feet. Yellow, purple, purple, black, black, red, 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 red. 9 soul rings appeared, making the blue glacier shine brilliantly. Compared to Li Sun, Sword Douluo, though possessing a more imposing aura, had relatively meager 9 spirit rings at his feet. He's actually obtained another 100,000-year spirit ring, even though she had already seen Li Sun's spirit rings once. Ice Empress felt somewhat disoriented. She remembered that Li Sun didn't have this configuration the last time they met. If you count the 2 100,000-year spirit rings from his second spirit, this human now possesses a total of 6 100,000-year spirit rings. This is an extremely terrifying number, meaning that 7 100,000-year spirit beasts have already perished or become intelligent spirit rings. Considering Li Sun's current age, if he can't become a god at this age, then no one in the world can become a god. Ice Empress suddenly had this thought, Snow Empress, I think this method should work. Snow Empress looked at the spirit rings at Li Sun's feet, her heart also wavering. Hearing Ice Empress's excited tone beside her, she couldn't help but clench her snow-white hands. Rumble, rumble. Just then, the Ice Bear King arrived with heavy steps. When it saw the strange phenomenon under the feet of the humans ahead, it braked sharply, sliding a short distance before barely stopping behind the Snow Empress and Ice Empress. Mom, little white, stay here and don't move. The Ice Bear King's whisper startled the Snow Empress. After giving the instructions, it quickly rose, passing over the Ice Empress and flying towards Li Sun. Snow Empress, the Ice Empress exclaimed, immediately taking to the air to stop him. I won't hurt him, but since he has the confidence to become a god, I'll help you test whether he's truly qualified. A clear, cold voice echoed from the sky. Although the Snow Empress didn't turn around, she calmed the Ice Empress down. Li Sun and Sword Douluo naturally heard these words as well. Grandpa Sword, don't interfere. Li Sun's eyes brightened. Since the Snow Empress wanted to test his abilities, he would show her. True martial soul body, true thousand hands. He clasped his hands together, his soul power surged, and the 7th red soul ring lit up, radiating energy outwards. A hidden shadow that blotted out the sun revealed its true form. A patch of green appeared on the glacier of the far north, which had stood for hundreds of thousands of years. Chapter 329 Ninja Art, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Shock. Nothing is more awe-inspiring than a colossal object, its full form obscured from close range, suddenly appearing before one's eyes. Even spirit beasts are no exception. Although Ice Empress and the others were accustomed to the Titan Snow Demon King's size, compared to the over 600-meter-tall 1,000-hand Buddha statue, it was like an infant. While strength cannot be defined by size, when a size reaches a certain level, it inevitably carries corresponding power. Snow Empress narrowed her crystal-clear eyes and slowly raised her palm. Snow dance shines in the sun. A crystal-like snowflake floated behind Snow Empress, then slowly grew larger, a chill spreading from it, and the already unsuitable low temperature in the surrounding area continued to drop. Even Li Sun, high in the sky, couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. A domain? Sensing this, Li Sun activated his killing god domain, his 8th spirit ring and the Titan Snow Demon King's left leg bone lighting up simultaneously. Power amplification, ice manipulation, extreme cold spreads. Li Sun layered the buffs on himself, one after another. Facing the Snow Empress, whose strength was akin to that of the limit Douluo, he dared not be careless in the slightest. Although his martial soul was immune to both ice and fire, it had its limits. These limits were not due to the medicinal power of the immortal grade medicine, but rather to his own inherent strength. In the face of such a vast gap in strength, nothing was absolute. While Li Sun was strong, he was still far behind a limit Douluo who had undergone a qualitative transformation. Fortunately, his 8th soul ring absorbed the Titan Snow Demon King. Through the amplification of his 8th soul skill and soul bone, his martial soul would not suffer a loss of combat power in such extreme weather. Topoda transformation. After instantly stacking the buffs, Li Sun did not hesitate. He clasped his hands together, and the true 1,000 hands moved in response. Crack 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 crack. At this moment, a thin layer of frost had condensed on the 1,000 arms behind the Buddha. The sudden movement immediately triggered a chain reaction, and a series of dense sounds echoed. Thousands of fist shadows, mixed with countless ice crystals, crashed down, dazzlingly bright under the sunlight. No snow in the great cold, the Snow Emperor slowly raised her head. At this moment, it was as if time had slowed down. The fist, as close as a meteorite, seemed to have become a slow-moving snail. Energy gathered in her left palm, which she slowly raised to meet the massive fist. Then, the energy burst forth. Crack! 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 The fist was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture, with ice spikes suddenly growing from it, spreading relentlessly towards the Buddha. Several nearby arms were also affected. The Snow Emperor's speed was extremely fast. By the time Li Sun saw it clearly, the ice had already spread along most of the Buddha's arms. However, this did not affect him. He manipulated his arm to squeeze and break the frozen arm, preventing the entire martial soul from being affected. At this moment, the sky full of fist shadows had already covered the entire sky above the Snow Emperor's head. Boom! 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 The massive glacier was crushed by the fists, cracks appeared in the millennia-old ice on the ground, snow mist flew, and ice chunks scattered everywhere. The earth began to tremble, affecting all creatures within 100 miles. They clung tightly to the ground, looking around in terror. Sword Douluo, Ice Empress, and Ice Bear King, who were nearby, quickly retreated to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Xiao Sun is stronger than before, Sword Douluo remarked, standing not far from Ice Empress and looking up at the colossal Buddha statue. Ice Bear King hid behind Ice Empress. Bears pride themselves on strength, and as a power-type soul beast, it understood the force of those punches better than anyone. It felt itself being outmatched in terms of power. Emperor Sword, Ice Extreme unparalleled. Just then, a clear, cold voice pierced through the continuous roar, reaching everyone's ears. The once clear sky suddenly became overcast, a vortex appeared from the clouds, and then a sharp sword tip came into view. Snow Empress dodged amidst the barrage of punches, and just as she was about to be struck, a crystalline ice sword appeared in her hand. Then, with a flick of her wrist, a flash of cold light streaked across her face, and over 20 enormous arms were instantly severed. She used this opening to fly away. At that moment, the imperial sword in the clouds revealed its true form. It was a giant sword entirely formed of ice crystals, its 50-meter-long blade inscribed with seal script, and emanating a visible chill. Though it appeared slender, the sword exerted immense pressure on Li Sun upon its appearance. Rise! Seeing the giant sword hurtling towards her with unparalleled power, Li Sun extended her left foot and lightly stepped on the Buddha statue. Instantly, hundreds of arms rose to meet it. The remaining arms continued to pursue the Snow Empress. Clang, clang, clang. The enormous fists relentlessly pounded the giant sword, but though small, it possessed unparalleled sharpness. Arms were constantly torn apart, limbs fell to the ground, and deafening sounds echoed all around. In an instant, dozens of arms were destroyed. A crack appeared on the sword. Though sharp, the Emperor's sword was ultimately formed from condensed energy and ice, and it was bound to be damaged by the relentless attacks. Li Sun's eyes lit up, and over 100 more arms met the Emperor's sword. After dozens more arms were destroyed, the Emperor's sword finally shattered, turning into fragments that scattered everywhere. At that moment, the Snow Empress also escaped the Buddha's attack range. Floating quietly in midair, she looked at the enormous Buddha, a ripple appearing in her usually calm gaze. She hadn't expected those seemingly fragile arms to be so powerful when their number reached a certain level. Although their texture wasn't hard enough, even she wouldn't dare let those meteorite-like fists strike her. In their brief exchange, although she had destroyed nearly 200 of the Buddha's arms, it had had no real effect on her opponent, who possessed thousands of arms. Although she hadn't used her full strength, the fact that her opponent could withstand her Snow Empress's 3 absolute techniques was something to be proud of. Seeing the relentless onslaught of fists, the Snow Empress's mind raced, and in a flash, she analyzed the situation. The optimal solution was to escape the attack range and then painstakingly reduce the size of the arm. However, closing in on the human was also a chance of victory. As the leader of the 3 heavenly kings of the far north, even with her strength suppressed, her pride prevented her from winning through evasion. Her ice sword reappeared, but this time the energy within it was even stronger. Several energy vortexes suddenly appeared behind her, and 5 imperial swords gleamed with cold light. With a swing of her ice sword, she met the barrage of fists. She herself flew into the sky, until she reached a certain height, watching Li Sun swoop down. At this moment, the energy released by the imperial swords and the Snow Empress was immense. Even Li Sun felt the pressure. But a strong person would not back down in the face of difficulty. Boom, the thousands of fists vanished into white mist, replaced by an ice sword. She gently stroked the flying sword. 2 red spirit rings shone brightly beneath Li Sun's feet, and a flying sword shot out from his hand, tracing a straight line towards the Snow Empress. But that wasn't all. Li Sun's hands, unusually, formed a hand seal, ninja art, shuriken shadow clone technique. With this ninjutsu, the water-cold sword attacking the Snow Empress instantly split, 1 into 2, 2 into 4, and in the blink of an eye, into over 100. The first spirit ring shone, its spiritual power locking firmly onto the Snow Empress. The hundreds of flying swords, as if drawn by a force, neatly aimed their tips at her before bursting forth. Chapter 330 Flying Thunder God, Great Buddha. Is this the second spirit the Ice Emperor spoke of? The Snow Emperor looked at the hundreds of flying swords hurtling towards her, then glanced at the 2 red spirit rings shining beneath Li Sun's feet. Her expression remained calm, but the energy in her ice sword intensified. The flying swords were incredibly fast, arriving before the Snow Emperor in the blink of an eye. Clang, clang, clang. Though her ice sword moved lightly, its speed was astounding, and the flying swords were cut down the moment they entered the Snow Emperor's vicinity. Such weak attack power? Feeling the impact from the sword, the Snow Emperor was puzzled, but when she saw the spirit rings beneath Li Sun's feet, she understood. However, she did not stop the match because Li Sun's second spirit currently lacked spirit rings. Seeing the flying sword that had just been knocked away flying towards her again, the Snow Emperor channeled energy into her ice sword, seemingly casually swinging it forward. In an instant, a giant sword appeared in the space in front of her, slashing horizontally along the trajectory of her swing. With a single strike, the flying sword in front of her was instantly sent flying in all directions. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The water-cold sword posed no obstacle to the Snow Empress, which was exactly what Li Sun had anticipated. And that wasn't his intention. Seeing the 5 giant swords and the Snow Empress attacking from both sides, Li Sun held his sword finger to his chest, his figure vanishing in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already above and behind the Snow Empress, with a water-cold sword that had just been knocked away at his feet. It was the Flying Thunder God technique. He had already laid the mark when he summoned his martial soul and seemingly casually touched the sword. Gravity Swamp, Titan Skybreaker. Li Sun threw a punch at the Snow Empress, and the Titan giant ape's left arm soul bone lit up. A dark yellow energy instantly enveloped the Snow Empress, followed by an air cannon that instantly appeared behind her. And that wasn't all. Li Sun didn't believe he could injure Zhu Di so easily. He deactivated his second martial soul and mobilized his soul power again. Would release, true several thousand hands, top transformation Buddha, a Buddha, no smaller than the one from before, appeared before Li Sun, blocking the sky, its face indifferent as it looked down at the earth. Thousands of fist shadows behind the Buddha slammed out, the massive 600-meter-long figure crashing directly towards Zhu Di. This was a new combination skill Li Sun had come up with. A shadow fell over the earth. Sword Douluo, Ice Emperor, An Ice Bear King looked up at the sky, feeling a chill run down their spines. The two beasts quickly retreated a distance. This kind of attack couldn't be categorized by cultivation level alone, it was more like the power of nature, a giant meteorite from outer space, its simple impact leaving one feeling powerless. Zhu Di had already received a warning when Li Sun's attack arrived. Although she didn't understand why he had appeared behind her so suddenly, it didn't stop her from reacting. Clang, the dark yellow gravity field was blocked by her domain. Facing the oncoming air cannon, Zhu Di held her sword upright with her left hand to block it. However, her body was still knocked back by the powerful impact and crashed to the ground. Zhu Di did not immediately adjust her position, but quietly watched the oncoming Buddha and the sky full of fist shadows. The impact force brought by this height and size would be unparalleled. Even with her cultivation, if she were hit, she would not hold back. The energy in her body burst out, and the terrifying aura distorted the air for a moment. The ice sword hummed, and the space in front of her trembled. She slashed out in succession, and several 100-meter-long giant swords appeared in front of her. Following the trajectory of her swings, they continuously met the oncoming Buddha and the sky full of fist shadows. Bang bang bang, the fist shadows collided with the giant swords. Arms were constantly torn apart, and new fists continued to join the attack. In an instant, wood chips flew and severed arms flew everywhere. One by one, the Buddha's arms were destroyed, and gradually, the giant sword gained the upper hand. But this situation didn't make the Snow Empress relax, because the Buddha was still falling, and its speed was increasing. The force and power of the approaching wind were clearly felt even from a distance. Should she dodge? The thought flashed through the Snow Empress's mind, followed by a startle. She hadn't expected that a human who had only recently reached the title level could make her, a powerful cultivator of 680,000 years, consider avoiding a direct attack. There was another way. That was to break a large hole in the ice and crawl inside to avoid the impact. Never mind, the Snow Empress sighed, turning and quickly descending towards the ground. Then, she unleashed her full power, flying at an incredible speed towards the edge of the Buddha's area of effect. Boom! Moments later, the earth shook as the Buddha collided with the ice, sending up snow waves hundreds of meters high that swept outwards like a tsunami. Cracks began to appear in the millennia-old ice of the far north, and abysses spread outwards from the center of the Buddha's impact. "My home," Ice Empress murmured, gazing at the destroyed glacier canyon. Li Sun looked around in the air, his spiritual power constantly probing his surroundings. Although his attack was powerful, he dared not be careless against a powerhouse like Snow Empress. Suddenly, a snow-white figure appeared beside Ice Empress. "They're not fighting anymore," Li Sun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had broken through to the tidal realm and his soul power had increased significantly, it could only support him using true thousand hands 4 times at most. But he couldn't truly use up all his soul power, he needed to reserve some for defense. If the next attack failed, he would have to rely on Flying Thunder God technique to maintain his invincibility. Fortunately, Snow Empress showed no intention of continuing the fight. Landing gently beside Sword Douluo, Li Sun cupped his hands in thanks to the Snow Empress, saying, "Thank you for showing mercy, Snow Empress, you're quite good." The Snow Empress looked at Li Sun quietly for a long time before speaking in a cold tone. "Humans are truly blessed, isn't that the key to our plan's success?" Li Sun released the heavenly dream ice silkworm from his spiritual sea, "and I keep my word. As long as I become a god, I will definitely resurrect the Ice Empress and heavenly dream, and the same goes for other soul beasts." After speaking, a kind smile appeared on Li Sun's lips. "Would you like to take a gamble?" "Of course. If you're confident you can survive the next heavenly tribulation, then disregard what I said. After all, each time you survive a heavenly tribulation, your lifespan is at least tens of thousands of years." The Snow Empress hadn't expected that before the Ice Empress had even sacrificed herself, this human had already set his sights on her. However, compared to the heavenly tribulation more than 10,000 years later, she felt the probability of becoming a god was probably even lower. "It's too early to talk about these things now. Let's talk about it when you can defeat me, but now I want to see the wisdom soul ring you mentioned. I hope you're not just lying to Ice Empress." Sensing the meaning in Snow Empress's tone, Li Sun nodded solemnly. "Don't worry, you agree." Ice Empress's massive front claws touched the hem of Snow Empress's skirt. Snow Empress looked at Ice Empress without answering. Her usually calm heart was now filled with complex emotions. They had known each other for 100,000 or 200,000 years, Snow Empress had forgotten. Originally, Snow Empress thought one of them would fall first in the heavenly tribulation, but she hadn't expected such a separation. Just then, the heavenly dream-eye silkworm, who had always feared Snow Empress, also became active. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 External Soul Bone. What's there to worry about? Look, I'm perfectly fine. Xiaogang Ice Silkworm poked its head out from behind Li Sun's neck. After Li Sun becomes a god, we'll go to the god realm with him. That's an endless lifespan. Then, we won't have to worry about that damn heavenly tribulation anymore. Xiaogang had overheard Li Sun's conversation with the Snow Empress, which gave it a new idea. Given the current situation, if the Snow Empress joined them, it would be a huge boost. The Ice Empress also realized this, but she didn't try to dissuade the Snow Empress. Compared to the heavenly tribulation, this was a gamble for her too. The Snow Empress still had a chance, and given their relationship and feelings, she didn't want the Snow Empress to take risks without knowing what lay ahead. Let's begin. The Ice Empress looked at Li Sun, a resolute glint in her eyes. Now that the decision was made, there was no need to hesitate. Wait, let me explain the situation first. Seeing that Ice Empress was about to make the sacrifice, Xiaogang Ice Silkworm quickly interrupted. This method is a little different from mine back then. Back then, I sacrificed my second martial soul's main soul ring to become a wisdom soul ring, and I also sealed 80% of its energy. Originally, I planned for you to use the excess energy to generate another martial soul for Li Sun as his main soul ring, but Li Sun felt that having another martial soul would be too cumbersome. Then he will suffer more. In a moment, I will continuously release the energy sealed within his body, and then use this energy to preserve your soul, but correspondingly, I will not have the spare power to seal your energy. What does that mean? Ice Empress was a little nervous. After all, this concerned her life. Even Li Sun was quite curious. It means that your energy will run rampant within his body. Xiaogang Ice Silkworm was no longer joking around, and became unusually serious. Besides me, the soul beast with the highest age that Li Sun has absorbed is the Titan Snow Demon King. Everyone understood the meaning immediately. While each major realm of a soul master can increase the absorption lifespan of their soul rings, there is a limit, and this increase is based on each individual's physique. Generally, a soul master's lifespan increases by a few thousand or tens of thousands of years, while those with better physiques and higher levels can increase it by around 20 to 30,000 years. At most, it won't exceed 50,000 years. Such a small increase often means that soul masters will desperately squeeze out their potential, absorbing soul rings close to or exceeding their limit in order to expand their physique's upper limit upon advancement. However, even with a significant increase in physique, each realm has its limits. Although Li Sun possesses a physique far exceeding that of ordinary soul masters, he can only absorb soul beasts with a lifespan of up to 300,000 years at most. The Ice Emperor Scorpion's cultivation of 380,000 years is far superior. Why didn't you say this sooner? The Ice Emperor Scorpion's gaze towards Xiaogang Ice Silkworm gradually turned hostile. This risk was something Li Sun and Xiaogang hadn't mentioned before. Even the Snow Emperor's gaze changed. Whether Li Sun can become a god is another matter. If not, at least the Ice Empress can live within Li Sun's body for another 100 years. But if he dies during the sacrifice, Xiaogang is right, but it didn't seem to say we would die, did it? Seeing the increasingly tense atmosphere, Li Sun smiled and said, I actually have self-healing abilities. As long as I'm not burst by the energy of the sacrifice, I'll be fine. Moreover, the Ice Empress can fuse her soul bone with me first. That way, my physique will be further improved. Plus, the soul bone and the Ice Empress's energy are from the same source, so it will be easier to absorb. Self-healing ability. The Ice Empress and the Snow Empress were taken aback. Although they didn't have this ability, it was understandable that some soul beasts possessed it. The atmosphere suddenly became more lively again. Which soul bone are you still missing? Bingdi asked with interest. We 100,000-year-old soul beasts are bound to produce a soul bone, and my cultivation is already close to 400,000 years, making my soul bone far stronger than that of a typical 100,000-year-old soul beast. Most importantly, I can determine its form and location. This is the original meaning, not a misinterpretation. I'm still missing a torso bone and an external soul bone. Li Sun smiled. This was the moment he had been most looking forward to. If possible, I want an external soul bone. After acquiring so many 100,000-year-old soul rings and soul bones, he had a general understanding of the patterns of 100,000-year-old soul bones. If it were just a hunt, the location where a 100,000-year-old soul bone would drop would be uncertain. If it were a sacrifice, there would be a location where the soul master hadn't yet obtained the soul bone. But the strength of a soul bone is linked to the soul beast itself. As Bibi said, a soul beast approaching 400,000 years old can determine the location and form of a soul bone, far beyond what a useless person like Xiao Wu could compare to. Li Sun did some quick calculations and realized that besides this opportunity and luck, the only other soul beasts that could give him an external soul bone were the Ice Emperor and the Snow Emperor. After all, he wasn't familiar with the other soul beasts, and getting them to sacrifice themselves was easier than hunting them down. The reason Xiao Wu was so easily influenced by his illusion to sacrifice herself was because she had heard the story of Yin sacrificing herself to Tang Hao. The Snow Emperor, however, probably wouldn't be so easily persuaded, as she was different from the Ice Emperor. The Ice Emperor was nearing her end, while the Snow Emperor still had a chance to fight back. An external soul bone? That's an opportunity to raise my potential. The Ice Emperor's eyes lit up, showing considerable appreciation. The most precious soul bones were external soul bones, followed by skulls and torso bones. However, external soul bones were extremely rare, unattainable only by those with great fortune. Now, this was an opportunity. He could simply hunt other soul beasts for the torso bone. To lessen your pain, I'll use poison to slightly paralyze you before fusing the soul bone. Are you ready? Ice Emperor raised her beautiful tail hook, seemingly even more impatient than Li Sun. Wait a moment. Li Sun found a relatively flat ice surface, sat cross-legged, and nodded to Ice Emperor. But as soon as he finished speaking, a dark green tail hook pierced his tailbone, leaving Li Sun momentarily stunned. Did Ice Emperor know how to give injections? The thought had barely formed when he felt excruciating pain shooting from his body into his brain. Large beads of sweat instantly soaked his clothes, something almost impossible to see in the far north. Fortunately, Li Sun was used to pain from childhood, and he gritted his teeth and persevered. Sword Douluo's eyes flashed with worry upon seeing this, and he hesitated before stepping forward. It's good that you still have this, brother. Seeing this, Xiaogang ice silkworm quickly wrapped Li Sun in its remains to prevent him from being exposed to the freezing cold while soaking wet. At this crucial moment, Hayori had reached a critical juncture. Using a secret technique, she continuously softened Li Sun's spine, then a beam of emerald light shone from her tail, transferring a soul bone enveloped in energy into Li Sun's body. With each infusion of energy, Li Sun's spine slowly turned emerald green. If Li Sun were absorbing the torso bones at this point, his ribs would also be strengthened. However, the soul bone Hayori wanted to transform was an external soul bone, so she had to prevent energy leakage. Crack crack crack. As energy continued to flow into and soften his spine, Li Sun's spine, which had been straight since childhood, tilted slightly forward, but his powerful self-healing ability pulled him back. Chapter 332 The Metamorphosis brought by the Ice Emperor Scorpion. Time ticked by. When Ice Empress noticed Li Sun slowly healing, she immediately accelerated the injection of energy. As the violent energy entered his spine, softening it completely, the pain suddenly reached its peak. Even Li Sun almost couldn't hold on. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth from clenching his teeth, and muffled groans escaped his nose. His body trembled slightly, blood seeping from his skin and mingling with sweat. Crack! 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 As Ice Empress continued to inject energy into Li Sun's body, reshaping his softened spine, cracking sounds began to emanate from the areas where his bones affected other parts of his body. Now we've reached a most crucial moment. Hold on. At this moment, Ice Empress's crystal-like appearance had dimmed, and her words revealed exhaustion and unbearable pain. This energy was equivalent to part of her body, like she was disassembling her own bones and fusing them into Li Sun's body. Although soul beasts naturally possess a certain degree of pain resistance, the pain constantly assaulted her nerves. Itchy, restless feeling spread throughout her body. After an unknown amount of time, the pain gradually subsided, replaced by a tingling sensation that spread from his spine. Li Sun shifted slightly, feeling a little uncomfortable, and then noticed something new on his spine. Using his mental energy to introspect, he saw several prominent bulges on his spine. At that moment, Ice Emperor retracted her tail hook. Having endured a full hour of pain, she had reached her limit. Xiaogang, I never thought you, a piece of trash, could actually latch onto such a person. Xiaogang Ice Silkworm said somewhat embarrassedly. I also helped him a lot. Ice Emperor wasn't wrong to say it had latched onto Li Sun. After all, without Li Sun rescuing it from the starred-out Great Forest, it would still be being devoured by those soul beasts. However, even so, he couldn't admit it to his beloved. Just then, Li Sun had found the key to controlling the soul bones. With a tearing sound, the skin along with spine was ripped open, and 11 emerald green, crystal-like bones emerged from Li Sun's back. These bones were initially incredibly sharp, but as they emerged from his body, they slowly opened up, eventually forming a scorpion-like limb. However, the two uppermost pincers were not as large, much more refined and sharper than Hyote's. Most notably, a long tail resembling Hyote's appeared behind Li Sun. This tail was about 1.5 meters long, as thick as Li Sun's spine, and like Hyote's, it was divided into 5 segments, each shimmering with a jade-green crystal-like color. The last segment had a diamond-like tail hook, silvery white and menacing. The changes brought about by Hyote went far beyond this. Due to the appearance of the external soul bone, Li Sun's body was strengthened. Although it didn't affect other parts of his body, his entire skeleton was greatly strengthened under the nourishment of this energy. His muscles, fascia, blood vessels, and skin were also much tougher than before. Under these combined effects, Li Sun's temperament changed. A noble and aloof aura emanated from him, adding a touch of mystery. Slowly opening her eyes, a blue light shone forth, followed by a pair of sky blue eyes that appeared in everyone's sight. Those present felt uneasy under that gaze, as if those clear eyes could see right through them. Li Sun, how are you? Xiaogang Ice Silkworm moved slightly to Li Sun's side. I'm fine, let's continue. After activating his external soul bone and feeling the enhancement it brought, Li Sun gave a faint smile. Alright, then I'll continue. I've already extracted some of my essence. Prolonged use will cause damage. Ice Emperor nodded, and then her body gradually became transparent. Seeing this, Snow Emperor couldn't help but worry. Having witnessed the previous scene, she was no longer worried about the failed sacrifice leading to the simultaneous death of Li Sun and Ice Emperor, but rather about Ice Emperor's inability to preserve her soul and consciousness. Leave it to me. Perhaps sensing Snow Emperor's concern, Xiaogang Ice Silkworm left these words and leaped into Li Sun's spiritual sea. By this time, Ice Emperor had completely dissolved her essence, transforming herself into wisps of ice mist that seeped into Li Sun's body. Meanwhile, the heavenly dream Ice Silkworm broke its seal, enveloping Ice Emperor's soul with immense energy. This energy was originally intended to enhance the quality of his first soul ring, but even this method didn't consume much. Perhaps due to the previous pain, Li Sun's nerves were still numb, and he didn't perceive the sheer ferocity of the energy from Ice Emperor. Although his meridians were constantly being damaged and his body occasionally torn apart, it was quickly healed. Li Sun remained completely calm, like a spectator, watching his body evolve. His second martial soul emerged autonomously, the sword blade, which had initially emitted a chilling aura, gradually becoming more restrained, its crystal-like appearance gaining a grayish-white texture. Ultimate Ice. Li Sun nodded inwardly. This was Ice Emperor's inherent attribute. His external soul bone should exhibit the same behavior, since it shared the same origin as Ice Emperor's. At this moment, 2 red spirit rings were swirling around Li Sun, followed by a white one. Yellow, purple, black, the colors changed almost instantaneously. Sword Douluo only blinked, and the spirit rings had turned red. Meanwhile, Ice Emperor, whose soul had been stabilized by the heavenly dream Ice Silkworm, realized something and quickly channeled the sealed power into the first spirit ring. The age of the first spirit ring steadily increased, almost reaching the same level as the third spirit ring in a short time. Seeing this, the heavenly dream Ice Silkworm didn't continue, quickly sealing the remaining energy again to avoid depleting Li Sun's current physical limits. At this moment, Li Sun's aura began to rise continuously, only stopping at level 93. Each level up after being granted a title was extremely difficult, but thanks to Ice Emperor's external spirit bone and nearly 400,000 year spirit rings, he was still forcibly raised 2 levels. This stunned Sword Douluo, who had been guarding nearby. How did he? Bone Douluo, and Poison Douluo all cultivated for decades to reach their current level? Even before reaching level 95, it took years of painstaking effort to advance just one level. Xiao Sun is not even 19 years old, Sword Douluo exclaimed. Living in the same era as such a genius is both a blessing and a curse. Because he makes you seem so ordinary. Even the legendary genius Tang, so renowned throughout the continent, will gradually be forgotten for his feat of reaching the title level in his 30s. Fortunately, Xiao Sun has descended upon the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Sword Douluo dared not imagine how much of a threat Li Sun would pose if he were in another power. Therefore, he had already seen from the fight between Li Sun and the Snow Empress that while Li Sun couldn't defeat the Snow Empress was also helpless against Li Sun. And this situation would be the same for him. Chapter 333 The Changing Landscape and Tang San's Relief. Silence fell once more in the far north, neither the two humans nor the two beasts uttering a word. After a long while, the Snow Empress's face rarely showed such complexity. Ice Empress, are you alright? Li Sun had already proven the possibility of becoming a god with his talent and strength. Although she couldn't hide her shock, she was more worried about the Ice Empress. Wait a moment, she's still adapting. I'll talk to her, Li Sun quickly reassured her, then immersed his mind in his spiritual sea. Perhaps due to his 3 lifetimes, although Li Sun wasn't a spiritual soul master, his spiritual sea was vast. The expansive, azure space truly resembled an ocean. Above his spiritual sea, 6 golden marks engraved with intricate patterns floated, radiating a subtle pressure, reminding Li Sun of the energy contained within. At this moment, the Ice Empress was resting on one of the marks, the depletion of her essence and the unspeakable pain greatly affecting her. The heavenly dream Ice Silkworm, meanwhile, hovered around the Ice Empress, showering her with concern, behaving like a devoted sycophant despite being an insect. Sensing Li Sun enter his spiritual sea, the two beasts turned their gazes to him. Not bad, it seems my choice was correct, Ice Emperor couldn't help but praise. How about it? My judgment is good, isn't it? Seeing Ice Emperor finally speak, Xiaogang Ice Silkworm was overjoyed and quickly sought praise. What does it have to do with you? Ice Emperor flicked Xiaogang Ice Silkworm aside with her tail. Ice Emperor, welcome to the team. Seeing that Ice Emperor's condition wasn't so bad, Li Sun's heart settled. Snow Emperor was a little worried about you. Should we let her know you're safe? I almost forgot. Ice Emperor paused, then manipulated her spiritual power to condense a phantom image, rushing out of her spiritual sea. The wind and snow of the far north billowed Snow Emperor's long dress as she stood there quietly watching Li Sun, while the Ice Bear King hid behind her. As a being born from the primordial energy of heaven and earth, she had no kin. For hundreds of thousands of years, she had silently cultivated, unaware of emotions. Until she met Ice Emperor and Little White. But today, Ice Emperor was leaving her feeling as if something was missing. Snow Empress couldn't decipher this emotion, yet she was also somewhat curious about this feeling. Just then, Ice Empress's voice interrupted her thoughts. Snow Empress, due to the depletion of her essence, the body transformed by Ice Empress's spiritual power wasn't its original size, but this also gave her an unprecedented sense of pleasure. She rubbed and touched herself comfortably in Snow Empress's cupped hands. You succeeded. Snow Empress held Ice Empress up to her eyes, a flicker of emotion appearing deep within her clear blue eyes, momentarily speechless. She wasn't usually a talkative person. Snow Empress, I'm fine now, you don't need to worry. Seemingly sensing Snow Empress's difference, Ice Empress softly comforted her. That's good, Snow Empress murmured softly. Snow Empress. I should have advised you, after all, you and I are different, you should still have a chance to overcome the heavenly tribulation, but, if there really is no other way, I hope you can consider it too. Ice Empress hesitated for a moment, then looked up at Snow Empress earnestly. I'll consider it. If you encounter any difficulties, you can come back to me. After saying this, Zudi looked at Li Sun. I hope you won't lead Bingdi to her doom. No, I cherish my life. Li Sun smiled. The wind and snow in the very center of the far north weren't heavy, but the desolation was palpable. Zudi and Xiaobai stood on a glacier, silently watching the two figures disappear into the distance, looking somewhat forlorn. In recent years, the Douluo Continent had been undergoing dramatic changes. First, the Heaven Dao Empire attacked the Star Luo Empire, its advance unimpeded. Then, the Spirit Hall declared its independence, joining the annexation effort. For a time, the Star Luo Empire became a piece of meat in the mouths of the two empires. But for some reason, the Heaven Dao Empire, which had initially been in a favorable position, began to shrink back after the Spirit Empire intervened, focusing only on consolidating its existing gains and allowing the Spirit Empire to wreak havoc on the Star Luo Empire's territory. Rumors spread across the continent, further confirming the close relationship between the Heaven Dao Empire and the Spirit Empire. And for the first time, many powerful figures from the Spirit Hall became known to the world. Although rumors circulated that the Spirit Hall suffered heavy losses due to the Beast Tide, their current strength was enough to instill fear. Your Majesty, Heaven Dao hasn't made any further moves. There are reports that the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School has already recalled all its high-level spirit masters. Chrysanthemum Douluo followed behind Bibi Dong, walking down the streets of Star Luo City. I know, don't worry about them for now. Bibi Dong wasn't surprised, and her mind wasn't currently on Heaven Dao or the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. It was too easy. The Spirit Empire had captured the former Star Luo Empire's capital with almost no resistance. An ordinary monarch might be pleased, but this didn't meet Bibi Dong's expectations. Looking at the closed shops and houses on both sides of the street, Bibi Dong's eyes flashed. Send the order to continue the advance, and send another letter to Ningfengzi, telling him to hand over Jiangxin City. Jiangxin City has rich geological resources. With such a strategic location, the output of the Kibao armory will become uncontrollable. Only war is the best place to test equipment. After the battle between Yondao and Xingluo, the weapons produced by the Kibao factory have also entered the world site. People only then realized that even if they couldn't become soul masters, they were not without resistance. For a time, the huge crossbow and the one-hoof B, among other weapons produced by Kibao, became highly sought-after items by ordinary people. If someone had a huge crossbow on their waist and a one-hoof B on their back, no one would dare to underestimate them, even if they weren't a soul master. Because those who could afford these two items must also be carrying other weapons. By the way, how is Nana? Seeing that Chrysanthemum Douluo was about to retreat, Bibi Dong asked. I heard she went to Heaven Dao City with Ningfengzi, but that's all I know. I understand, you can go now. Bibi Dong nodded slightly, waved to Chrysanthemum Douluo, and then rubbed her temples. She didn't know what Tulina was thinking, or if she was too severely affected by the Hell Road, to do something so reckless. The 3-headed Crimson Demon Mastiff was also a problem for her. That soul beast was very old, and with her current physical condition, she couldn't absorb it at all. While her first martial soul's 9th soul skill could keep her alive, it wouldn't work when absorbing soul rings with her second martial soul. Now, the war between the Spirit Empire and the Star Luo Empire wasn't meeting her expectations, so it seemed she needed to find other ways to improve her physical condition. In a dark cave near the outer edge of the central lake in the starred out Great Forest, Tang San and his son Tang Hao sat facing each other. Tang San was incredibly grateful for his decision to bring his father here. He had just returned from absorbing the aura of death from the battlefield between the Star Luo Empire and the Spirit Empire, and naturally had received a lot of information. Many of the reports were hard for him to believe. Father, the Spirit Hall and Li Sun are strong, but as long as they exist, our safety won't be threatened. Tang San didn't dare mention Di Bian's name, instead pointing towards the central lake. Little San, your decision is right, but even if others are strong, they're not our own power. Don't let your cultivation fall behind. Tang Hao put down the bowl of water, his heart as turbulent as the water in it. He sensed the smugness in Tang San's words. As a father, he didn't want to discourage his son, but their current situation wasn't suitable for such thoughts. Chapter 334 Return and Escape. In the dim, damp cave, silence fell for a moment, broken only by the soft breathing of the father and son. After a long while, Tang San gently plucked a small blue-silver grass from beside his leg and began to play with it. Father, rest assured, I understand this principle, however, human strength has its limits, father. In the current situation, isn't leveraging external forces our best option? If he had the ability, why wouldn't he want to crush them head-on, trampling Li Sun and the Spirit Hall underfoot, avenging his mother and Xia Wu? But as his cultivation level increased, he felt the gap between them more and more acutely. The thought that the Azure Bull Python might already be a spirit ring under Li Sun's feet filled Tang San with a sense of powerlessness. A 100,000-year spirit ring. Jealousy and longing rose in Tang San's heart. Through continuous absorption and the blessing of the Rakshasa God's test, His current level had reached 82, and with BG's help, his 8th ring's age had reached a staggering 75,000 years. If he could obtain a 100,000-year spirit ring when he was bestowed with a title, he would be confident that he could stand before Li Sun again. But how rare was a 100,000-year spirit ring? Although there were still a few spirit beasts in this place, given the energy they contained, even if they died right in front of him, Tang San felt he wouldn't dare absorb it. And given the nature of these spirit beasts, sacrifice would be even more difficult. A 19-year-old soul Douluo, with spirit rings surpassing even the best configuration, if only Li Sun weren't there. Little Sen, I know how you feel right now. There were times when the thought of the spirit hall overwhelmed me with a profound sense of powerlessness, but I don't want you turned up like me. Hearing the emotions in Tang San's tone, Tang Hao realized he had damaged his son's confidence and quickly comforted him. You're much stronger than I was back then. Hearing Tang Hao begin to recount his story with his mother, Tang San sighed inwardly and tossed a blue silver grass aside. He was indeed stronger than his father, but what good was strength? Wasn't he still like a rat hiding in this dark, damp corner? It seemed the only thing that could change the situation now was the divine trial. Was the 5th trial about killing the 7th elder? That suited him perfectly. A cold, fierce glint flashed in Tang San's eyes. The Heaven Dao Empire had been thriving in recent years, with constant reports of victories from the front lines greatly encouraging its people. They now firmly believed that if it weren't for the Spirit Hall's interference, Heaven Dao might have already unified the continent. It can't be called the Spirit Hall anymore, it should be called the Spirit Empire, a name many resented. In the capital, Heaven Dao City, a peaceful scene unfolded, filled with laughter and cheerful voices, the sounds of vendors hawking their wares rising and falling. The wooden carving called True Thousand Hands, recently launched by the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, was selling quite well. Li Sun's exploits had already spread throughout Heaven Dao City. The champion of the Soul Master competition, the holder of the fastest Soul Master level record, the one who single-handedly stormed the Star Luo battlefield to kill a titled expert from the Clear Sky sect at the Soul Douluo level, coupled with his numerous 100,000-year soul rings and the terrifying speed of advancing to titled level at the age of 18, it was like an adrenaline shot, stirring the blood in everyone's veins. Li Sun and Sword Douluo walked down the street, Li Sun holding a wooden carving of his own spirit. He noticed the craftsmanship was quite good, with meticulous attention to detail. It seems to be from the 7 Treasures factory. When he first established the factory, Li Sun had gathered 20,000 craftsmen to decipher Tang San's hidden weapons, including 5,000 carpenters. If you included the children of his apprentices, the number would probably be around 7,000. Although he no longer needed so many people after the hidden weapons were deciphered, Li Sun didn't lay them off. Instead, he set up a handicraft branch to allow these laid-off workers to survive. However, in this world, apart from spirit masters, ordinary people wouldn't be willing to spend recklessly, and this handicraft factory had been losing money since its inception. But Li Sun didn't care. He was already one of the richest people in the world, and it's said that the successful should help others. If he were to abandon his beliefs for a pittance, what right would he have to become the strongest? Without his approval, although the people below complained about the carpenters not making money, they dared not make the decision to lay them off. Isn't things getting better? Li Sun smiled as he stored the wooden carving into his soul tool. No one dislikes being praised, and he was no exception. Watching a child holding his wooden carving and being fawned over by other children, Li Sun felt satisfied, but another thought popped into his head. It would be a pity not to spread such a good thing. Li Sun hadn't seen the world's prosperity for a long time, so he walked slowly. But every road has an end, and as evening approached, the two arrived at the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School's headquarters. After several years of changes, the headquarters was now many times larger than before. Since Ningfengzi and the various levels of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School now needed to make decisions on major and minor matters of the Heaven Dao Empire, this place had become the very center of the empire. Although it was getting late, many officials were still coming and going, creating a busy scene. Thinking that Ningfengzi was probably quite busy, Li Sun didn't join in and went into the backyard after parting ways with Sword Douluo. Brother, you're back. In the pavilion of the secluded courtyard, Ning Rongrong, Zhu Xiaogang, and Du Yuyan were sitting together, with some tea and snacks on the table, seemingly celebrating something. Seeing Li Sun enter, all three beamed with joy. You all seem to be celebrating. Is something good happening? Li Sun hugged Ning Rongrong, who was running towards him, and asked with a smile. "Today is my 19th birthday." Ning Rongrong pouted and punched Li Sun in the chest. "Another year older," Li Sun chuckled, weighing the weight in his arms. "Looks like it hasn't been a wasted year, Rongrong. He probably even forgot his own birthday," Zhu Xiaogang said with a smile, seeing that Ning Rongrong seemed a little unhappy, thus helping Li Sun out of the awkward situation. "He did forget, but it's not that many days apart. Let's celebrate together." Putting Ning Rongrong down, Li Sun squeezed Zhu Xiaogang's hand and then sat down in the pavilion. Perhaps due to their brief separation, the atmosphere among them became quite lively. "How's teacher doing lately?" Li Sun suddenly asked, remembering Ning Fengzi. "What?" Ning Rongrong and Zhu Xiaogang looked puzzled, not quite understanding this seemingly random question. Du Yan, however, brightened up, smiling broadly. "Much better, but still a little down." Her grandfather had told her about Ning Fengzi, so she immediately understood. "Then it seems teacher needs to calm down. Come on, let's go back and rest. Tomorrow we'll go to Seagoat Island." Li Sun laughed, putting his arm around the three of them and leading them into the house. Ning Fengzi already knew Li Sun was back, but now all the major and minor matters of Xiaogang had to go through him, so he didn't have time to see him. "This kid comes back and doesn't even come to see me first. Little Sun is shrewd. He's probably already figured out your current state of mind." Sword Douluo laughed. Ning Fengzi smiled and shook his head. "Then I'll see what he does tomorrow." The next morning, Li Sun waved to Ning Fengzi with a smile, then boarded the carriage with the three women, leaving Ning Fengzi frozen in place. Chapter 335 Three Heroes Battle Emperor Tian. The conflicts on the mainland did not disturb the tranquility of Seagoat Island. It remained as peaceful as ever. Li Sun stored the dragon abyss boat in his soul tool and led the three women towards the island. Having reached level 90 in soul power, his life revolved around absorbing soul rings and grinding away, so he wasn't in a hurry. He could practice his swordsmanship and study ninjutsu, cultivation techniques, and the newly emerged soul skills along the way. Meanwhile, inside the Seagoat Island temple, Poseidon suddenly sensed something, abruptly turning around. Her gaze seemed to pierce through layers of obstacles, finally seeing Li Sun. How is this possible? A ripple suddenly appeared in Poseidon's usually stagnant heart. She clearly remembered that Li Sun was level 89 when he left Seagoat Island. How could his cultivation have jumped to level 93? She could understand a jump from 89 to 91, but the leap from 91 to 93 was enormous. Had he added several soul rings to his second martial soul, whoosh, Poseidon vanished from her spot. The 7 sacred pillars of Seagoat Island were equally shocked. As guardians of Seagoat Island, they needed to be constantly vigilant against powerful soul masters from outside to ensure the island's safety and order. Therefore, the 4 of them sensed something amiss as soon as Li Sun arrived on the island. Mainly, Li Sun's aura was completely undisguised, which greatly shocked them. "I thought you'd be back in a while, but I didn't expect you to be back so soon." Before the seahorse pillar, Poseidon showed no emotion whatsoever, calmly looking at Li Sun. "I didn't expect this trip to go so smoothly either. I was just thinking of using this free time to complete the remaining tests so I could do other things." Li Sun cupped his hands in greeting to Poseidon. "How many people die every year because they can't pass the divine test? How many people run around trying to pass it? And you call this free time?" The 7 pillars all showed strange expressions, even Poseidon's eyes twitched a few times. They really wanted to reprimand Li Sun, but sensing the aura emanating from him, they swallowed their words. Reaching the title level at such a young age certainly gives him the right to be arrogant. "Alright, since you're so confident, we'll wait for you." This also ignited the competitive spirit of the various sacred pillars. Which titled expert doesn't have a bit of pride? After so many years of cultivation, feeling looked down upon by a junior is unbearable for anyone. Even if this junior's cultivation has caught up with theirs, it's still unacceptable. The 7 sacred pillars scattered in a flash, everyone except Seahorse Douluo returning to their own sacred pillars. The content of the divine trial is two-way, they naturally knew its contents. "I'll wait for you too." Poseidon, as the high priestess of Seagoat Island, had even more thorough information. She looked at Li Sun and suddenly smiled. Now that the outcome was certain, she didn't feel fear of death, but rather a sense of relief. It was a liberation from the pressure in her heart. Poseidon carefully considered Li Sun's rate of improvement and realized she had at most 10 years left. She suddenly thought of looking around. It seemed she hadn't moved an inch since becoming the so-called High Priestess. Poseidon looked around. Her entire life had been on this island. Even the thought of seeing Tang Chen had been suppressed by duty. Now that Tang Chen was gone, and she herself was about to die, it would be a real pity if she didn't even get to see this vast sea god island one last time. Li Sun watched Poseidon's disappearing figure, a thoughtful look flashing in his eyes. He had gleaned a lot from that smile just now, and if possible, he wanted to give Poseidon a hand. It wasn't entirely out of pity or kindness, it was mainly because it would be a waste not to use such a powerful henchman. Nowadays, apart from the demon soul great white shark, all the 100,000-year-old soul beasts on the continent were quite powerful, making it extremely difficult for him to obtain his next soul ring. Although Li Sun and Zhu Di's battle seemed evenly matched, only he knew that if it continued, he would only be able to use the Flying Thunder God technique to protect himself. He wouldn't die, but it would certainly be a sorry sight. But with Poseidon by his side, things would be different. Although their strength would be weakened once they left the ocean, they were still genuine limit Daluos. If they could persuade Jin Daoliu, with 2 limit Daluos protecting them, the remaining spirit rings would be much easier to obtain. Once he became stronger, he might even dare to target Tian, a true 3-on-1 battle against Tian. Brother, Ningrong, seeing Li Sun lost in thought, gently tugged at his sleeve. It's nothing, let's get ready to begin. Li Sun snapped out of his reverie and flicked his forehead. I'll go and fight all these Daluos first, you guys just follow me and challenge them directly. Li Sun's divine test was different from before, it required him and Ningrong to defeat 7 Saint Pillar Daluos within 24 hours. He also wanted to try out his new skills and combinations, and these titles were perfect for his current level. Zhu Xiaogang and the other two's test had also changed significantly. The task required Zhu Xiaogang to lead Ningrong and Du Yan to defeat 4 Saint Pillar Daluos consecutively within 3 days, with no limit on the opponents. Li Sun guessed it was because Du Yan was a semi-support character. 1-on-1 was relatively easy, but 1-on-2 was much more difficult. Li Sun still wanted to maintain a good relationship with Poseidon, so he naturally couldn't kill the 7 sacred pillars and create resentment. By the way, I still have the Azure Bull Python's right arm soul bone. Who do you think will absorb it? Li Sun took the soul bone out of his soul tool. A soul bone reaching 100,000 years is like a work of art, far superior to ordinary soul bones. The 3 girls stared at the dazzling soul bone in Li Sun's hand, momentarily unable to look away. Even the seahorse Douluo, who was somewhat angry about what had just happened under the seahorse pillar, was attracted and quickly rushed to Li Sun. This is a 100,000-year soul bone, the seahorse Douluo exclaimed in amazement, looking at the soul bone and then at Li Sun. He hadn't expected this kid to be so wealthy, casually pulling out a 100,000-year soul bone. And it seemed he was going to give it to these 3 girls. One shouldn't be too greedy. I already got a soul bone last time, it wouldn't be right to take another one. Ningrong reluctantly looked away from the soul bone. Give it to Zhu Qing. She's going to help us pass the 5th trial later. It'll be good to improve our strength. Du Yan thought for a moment, then finally hardened her heart and refused. Li Sun looked at Zhu Xiaogang. Give it to Sister Yan. Zhu Xiaogang looked into Li Sun's eyes. I have a 100,000-year soul ring and 2 soul bones, one of which is a legacy soul bone from the Clear Sky sect. But Sister Yan has never received anything good. Her soul bones are just a 30,000-year head soul bone and a 20,000-year left leg bone from when she first entered the sect. If you find other divine trials, I'll be fine, but as a semi-support soul master, Sister Yan will have a hard time passing the trials. Having a powerful 100,000-year soul bone is a guarantee. Du Yan was stunned upon hearing this, and her eyes began to redden. The strong will always be strong. This soul bone won't be of much use to me. Li Sun smiled and gently took Du Yan's hand, placing the soul bone in her palm. Sister Yan, even if you don't want this soul bone, I will find other ways to compensate you. How could I mistreat you? If you fail the divine trials, on the day I become a god, even if it means killing me, I will carve out a vacancy for you. Chapter 336 When one achieves enlightenment, even his chickens and dogs rise to heaven. Although Seahorse Douluo was shocked by Li Sun's words about filling the vacancy in the divine position, the deep affection among the group was truly unbearable for him. He quickly and silently retreated, returning to his seahorse sacred pillar without a sound, ignoring the affection between Li Sun and the other 3. Du Guyan declined several times, but was finally persuaded by Li Sun and the other two. Seeing her tearful eyes, Li Sun's heart softened, realizing that he had indeed neglected Du Guyan. He held Du Guyan in his arms, gently patting her back, knowing that he needed to make some changes in the future. Some things needed to be revealed sooner rather than later to prevent them from overthinking. The energy of a 100,000-year-old soul bone was enormous, and Du Guyan's physique couldn't absorb it all in a short time. The group left Seahorse Douluo aside and began to protect her. Du Guyan had consumed a celestial medicine, and the quality of her martial soul had already improved. Her current soul power was level 75, one level higher than Ninjutsu's. Now, with the blessing of the Azure Bull Python Soul Bone, their soul power easily reached level 80. Let's go, let's get a soul ring for Sister Yan first. Li Sun waved his hand, leading the three women away, completely unaware of the Seahorse Douluo's astonished expression. Then what's the point of me waiting here? Seahorse Douluo gritted his teeth and snapped a piece of hard floorboards in two. Looking at the shimmering sea, Li Sun didn't take out the Dragon Abyss boat, but waited for Xiao Bai to greet them. He did this to take this opportunity to talk to Xiao Bai. However, it wasn't for himself, but for Zhu Xiuqing, Ning Rongrong, and Du Guyan. Although Xiao Bai was a 100,000-year-old soul beast, it was still too weak for Li Sun. After level 90, each level up required a huge amount of soul power, and he didn't want Xiao Bai to occupy his last 6 important soul rings. But Xiao Bai was just right for the three women. Ning Rongrong, needless to say, with him protecting her, was about to complete most of the 9 trials of the Sea God. While the initial reward is the affinity with the Sea God, upon completion of the 9 trials, not only will her entire soul bone transform into the Sea God's divine armor, but all her soul rings will also be upgraded by 50,000 years. Although this can only be achieved after she reaches a certain cultivation level, the future is still promising. However, Zhu Xiuqing and Du Guyan are different. Li Sun bears the trials of both the Sea God and the Azure God. Before the divine trial marks disappear, no god should want to face the dual wrath of the Sea God and the Azure God. Therefore, the path to godhood can only be cleared by Zhu Xiuqing and Du Guyan themselves. The reason for planning so early is that Li Sun wants them both to undergo the trials of a first-level god. With Zhu Xiuqing's current physique, the divine soul ring reward after passing the Sea God's trial will definitely upgrade her 8th soul ring to 100,000 years. Then, after he finds her 100,000-year soul beast, her first-level godhood should be assured. But it will be difficult for Du Guyan. Semi-support soul masters are already considered inferior, and given her previous weak soul ring and soul bone combination, it's unlikely any level 1 god would take notice of her. Therefore, the addition of a 100,000-year soul ring is crucial. After Du Guyan passes the Sea God's trial, she'll have another chance to receive a god-given soul ring, which she can use on her 9th soul ring. With 2 100,000-year soul rings, her potential should catch the eye of many gods. This is the path Li Sun has paved for his 3 women, and a level 1 god can bring many people to the god realm. If each person carries the maximum number of soul rings. Li Sun planned all of this in his mind, then looked up at the sky. This was his plan for one person attains enlightenment, and all their relatives and friends ascend to heaven. Little White was quite accommodating, sensing Li Sun's presence, it quickly swam over happily. Long time no see, Little White leaped out of the sea, transforming into human form and arriving beside Li Sun. It's been a long time indeed. Judging from your appearance, you demon soul great white sharks have been doing quite well since the demon orca pod disappeared, Li Sun teased. Zhu Xiuqing and the other 2 quickly greeted Xiao Bai as well. What? Did you only just remember you wanted your reward? Xiao Bai's eyes darted around, then it smiled and put its arm around Li Sun's shoulder. But it's not too late now, I'm in a good mood today. I have a lot of treasure collected from sunken human ships. You wait, I'll have my people bring it up. After Xiao Bai finished speaking, it sent a ripple into the sea that was invisible to humans. The surface of the sea stirred, and the fins of many demon soul great white sharks could be vaguely seen. You can wait a bit. They're a bit slow, it might take some time. Now you can tell me your real purpose. Don't tell me you really came for this? Do you want me to help you hunt for a spirit ring? After speaking, Xiao Bai's gaze fell on the 3 women. Through her senses, she quickly noticed the difference in Du Guyan. Tell me, what kind of spirit ring do you want? Du Guyan thought for a moment. With my current physique, The limit for a spirit ring I can withstand is about 80,000 years, and the spirit beast's ability should ideally be accompanied by poison and aggression. That's easy. There aren't many other spirit beasts in the sea, but poisonous ones are easy to find. Xiaobai chuckled, patting her chest, as if to say, I'll take care of it. Li Sun smiled at the two's familiar manner, reaching out to put his arm around Xiaobai's shoulder. From an outsider's perspective, the two looked like good buddies embracing. This made the three women, somewhat confused, pause for a moment, then their eyes flashed with wariness. Did Li Sun have his eye on Xiaobai? This is a spirit beast, after all. Little White, do you want to become a god? Li Sun ignored the three women's gazes, instead looking at Little White with a knowing smile. Little White was taken aback by the question and the look in his eyes, her cheeks flushing slightly. Of course I do. What kind of mischief are you up to? What mischief? I'm only here for you because it's a good thing. Li Sun put his arm around Little White and flicked her forehead with his free right hand. A good thing? I know how difficult it is for soul beasts to become gods. Even the deep-sea demon whale king, who was so strong, didn't become a god. How are you going to help me become a god? Little White struggled for a moment, but couldn't break free, and helplessly rubbed her forehead. We'll take you to the heavens, and you'll become a god, won't you? Li Sun shook his head in disappointment. You soul beasts are so stubborn. Haven't you heard the saying? What saying? The path to godhood is one of sacrifice and lying down. Isn't it much easier than you struggling for millions of years, constantly facing the danger of heavenly tribulations? Li Sun flashed a pair of pearly white teeth. At this moment, Zhu Huqing, Ning Rongrong, and Du Yuyan also reacted, the three women looking at Xiaobei with strange expressions. Sacrifice yourself to become a god. Xiaobei heard this for the first time, stunned for a moment, but then realized what was happening, his eyes revealing suspicion. You want to trick me into sacrificing myself for you? How could it be a trick? You've seen Rongrong and I's progress in the 9 trials of the sea god. Don't you believe we can pass the divine trial? Li Sun patted Xiaobei's shoulder. Xiaobei pondered for a moment, still feeling the risk was too great, and shook his head repeatedly. Who can say for sure until the very last moment? I've seen many soul masters die in the divine trial over the years, is that so? Then do you think we can pass like this? Li Sun smiled, various colored lights flashing beneath his feet. Yellow, purple, purple, black, black, red, 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 red. 9 soul rings appeared one after another. Through continuous experimentation, Li Sun discovered that if you wanted to put pressure on someone, the soul rings appearing little by little was the most effective. Chapter 337 9th Soul Skill. As Li Sun's spirit rings appeared one by one, the originally simple colored beach instantly transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors. Xiaobai, however, was stunned, staring blankly at the 100,000-year spirit rings. She had been too excited to investigate further when she sensed Li Sun's aura, only now realizing that he had already entered the ranks of human titled beings. She knew Li Sun's spirit ring configuration was absurd, but during the last divine trial when he hunted the demonic tiger whale horde, he only possessed 2 100,000-year spirit rings. How long had it been since they last met, and he had already hunted 2 more 100,000-year spirit beasts? Were there so many 100,000-year spirit beasts in the great inland continent? This was the first time Xiaobai had closely sensed the fluctuations emanating from the 100,000-year spirit rings, and she discovered that, apart from one that was similar to her own, the rest were all stronger than her. Do you think this is enough to help you become a god? Li Sun extended his index finger and nudged Xiaobai's head. If not, there's more. With that, the 9 spirit rings beneath his feet disappeared, replaced by 3 blood-red spirit rings. A transparent, chilling ice sword appeared in Li Sun's left hand, which was around Xiaobai's shoulder. 3 more 100,000-year soul rings. You have twin martial souls, Xiaobai exclaimed, quickly covering her mouth. She hadn't been present when Li Sun acquired a divine soul rings, and the scene deeply shocked her. So? Do you think I can become a god? It took Xiaobai a long time to calm herself. She couldn't help but think of the sea god. She remembered that even the sea god hadn't possessed such a soul ring configuration before becoming a god. I think I can. Xiaobai swallowed hard, her voice strained. Li Sun nodded in satisfaction. To avoid you thinking I'm lying, I'll introduce you to 2 more companions, so you know you're not the only one who made the same choice. With that, he summoned the heavenly dream ice silkworm and the ice emperor scorpion. The two soul beasts naturally welcomed Xiaobai. As the stronger Li Sun became, the greater their chances of becoming gods. Xiaogang, already excited, had entered her chatterbox mode, constantly surrounding Xiaobai and babbling incoherently. Even Bingdi occasionally uttered cold remarks. This completely bewildered Xiaobai. She had never seen anything like it before, and was amazed that the soul beasts could maintain their sanity after the sacrifice. The three soul beasts quickly started chatting together. Zhu Xiaogang and the other two girls also joined in, and soon a joyful atmosphere filled the beach. After a long while, seemingly satisfied by everyone's generosity, Xiaobai blushed and said, "All right. I'll take you on, come on, Li Sun, to avoid me regretting it later, let's start the sacrifice now." Seeing Xiaobai's resolute expression, Li Sun laughed, quickly pulled her back, and then said to Du Yan, "Xiaobai, don't rush, Sister Yan, come sit here. Otherwise you won't be able to move once the sacrifice begins." What did that mean? At this moment, not only Xiaobai was stunned, but the three girls, Xiaogang, Binkin, and Bingdi were also dumbfounded. Xiaobai looked at Li Sun with a blank expression. "You didn't ask me to sacrifice myself for you? You asked me to sacrifice myself for Du Guyan." "Yes," Li Sun nodded with a smile. Xiaobai was speechless. And the passion that had been aroused earlier began to cool. "Don't worry, would I ever trick you?" Li Sun patted Xiaobai's shoulder. "I will find a divine successor for Sister Yan. You can become a god with her, it's the same. I forgot to tell you, after becoming a god, you can take mortals to the god realm, and Sister Yan is my woman. Even if I don't become a god on the end, I will still take her with me. You will never be in danger. Think about it, when the sea god became a god, didn't he take others with him?" Li Sun's voice was gentle, constantly trying to reassure him, "This is also your chance. After all, even the sea god didn't take you to the god realm, did he?" At this time, the other humans and beasts also reacted and began to chime in. Under the seahorse sacred pillar, Seahorse Douluo had been there for a day. The harmonious relationship between Li Sun and the other three greatly affected him, leaving him unable to calm down for a long time, and even fueling his jealousy towards Li Sun. He glanced at the sky, about to return to the city lord's mansion, when he saw Li Sun and the others returning. Seahorse Douluo quickly stopped. "Are you ready?" Seeing Ning Rongrong amplify his power, Li Sun cupped his hands in greeting. "Of course, please enlighten me, senior." Seahorse Douluo's mind instantly cleared of all distractions, his eyes fixed solely on Li Sun. The rules of the Sea God's fifth trial were already imprinted in his mind. Defeat 7 holy pillars within 24 hours. Although Li Sun had only recently entered the ranks of those granted titles, it seemed the Sea God recognized Li Sun's strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have issued such an almost impossible task. Thinking of this, a powerful aura erupted from Seahorse Douluo's body, and 9 spirit rings, yellow, purple, black, 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 appeared one after another. Although Li Sun's 6th and 7th spirit rings were 100,000-year spirit rings, such luck wouldn't last forever. After all, 100,000-year spirit beasts weren't exactly commonplace. And as a veteran level 91 titled powerhouse, how could he be without his own methods? With this in mind, Seahorse Douluo stretched out his hand, and the seahorse sacred pillar behind him and the other 6 sacred pillars of Seagoat Island immediately emitted towering golden light, indicating that they were ready to begin at any time. Li Sun didn't stand on ceremony. 9 spirit rings slowly appeared beneath his feet one by one. Sure enough, revealing them slowly was the right thing to do. Seeing Seahorse Douluo's stunned expression upon seeing the 4 100,000-year spirit rings, Li Sun's lips curled into a smile. The right arm bone of his soft bone rabbit emitted a shimmering light, and his body suddenly vanished from its original spot. In the time it took to teleport 3 times, he was behind Seahorse Douluo. Would release Hell's Chaos. As his spirit power surged into his feet, the floor around the seahorse sacred pillar was instantly ripped away, and hundreds of thick vines and leaves burst forth from the ground. They spiraled and grew at an extremely rapid speed, enveloping Seahorse Douluo. Because he still had to challenge the remaining 6 holy pillars, Li Sun didn't choose to use the extremely energy-consuming True Thousand Hands technique. Now, he was already a level 93 titled cultivator, with numerous 100,000-year soul rings and soul bones. To go all out against an ordinary titled cultivator would be like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. Seahorse Douluo hadn't expected Li Sun to be so unethical, attacking while he was distracted. However, anyone who had cultivated to this level was a dragon among men. He reacted instantly, martial soul true body, seeing the vines binding him and tightening the grip. Seahorse Douluo's 6th, 7th, and 9th soul rings lit up in succession. A layer of blue, watery light surged from his body, barely holding back the contracting vines. A suit of pure white armor enveloped him, and streams of ink-black water appeared, finally condensing in the center of his palms. Seahorse Douluo had completely abandoned his arrogance as a senior. Seeing the 4 red soul rings at Li Sun's feet, he knew he had to go all out. 9th soul skill, Whirlwind Giant Wave Annihilation Fist. Seahorse Douluo clenched his fists, crushing the black water spheres that had gathered in his palms. A towering wave immediately surged from his center, spinning rapidly around him like water blades cutting through the surrounding vines. Although he didn't have a 100,000-year soul ring, his 9th soul ring was already 90,000 years old, its power extraordinary. 9th soul skill, Thousand-handed pagoda suppressing dragon soul, Thousand-handed pagoda locking dragon chains. Just as Seahorse Douluo was breaking through the vines, Li Sun's attack arrived. Suddenly, dark clouds filled the sky, and 12 tiny azure dragon phantoms burst forth from the clouds, instantly breaking through the constantly rotating water curtain. Break! Seeing the phantoms suddenly appear in the water curtain, Seahorse Douluo's heart tightened. He swung his dragon claws, instantly tearing apart 2 small azure dragons. Although he tried his best to resist, the initiative had been lost. After destroying 7 smaller dragons, it was momentarily caught off guard and its limbs were entangled, dragged into the air. At this moment, dark clouds filled the sky, with streaks of golden light flashing continuously. Suddenly, the clouds parted, revealing a point of golden light, and a golden spear, tens of meters long, emerged from the clouds with a sharp spearhead. Roar! Immediately afterward, a green dragon flew out, continuously coiling around the golden spear, and carrying it as it swooped down towards Seahorse Douluo. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Unstoppable Force. 3 girls beat up the mermaid granny. Seahorse Douluo looked up at the golden spear and azure dragon charging straight at him, his eyes filled with horror. He twisted his limbs frantically, trying to break free. But the 5 small azure dragons binding him remained motionless, like chains binding him and continuously absorbing his soul power. Even Li Sun himself was surprised by the effect of this 9th soul skill. This was the first time he had used this skill. Soul power had always been a product he used to enhance his soul power and martial soul quality. Since awakening his martial soul true form, he hadn't used a soul skill on its own for a long time. Seeing that the dragon spear was about to pierce through Seahorse Douluo, Li Sun quickly changed its direction. He just wanted to make Zhu's Huking and the others' mission easier, but it wouldn't be good if he actually crippled or killed them. Boom! The dragon spear plunged into the ring-shaped sea, the huge impact creating waves hundreds of meters high. A wave slapped against Seahorse Douluo's face. Although the water was cold, it made him breathe a sigh of relief. Just a moment ago, he had truly felt the danger of death. Seahorse Douluo sipped the bitter seawater and said to Li Sun, "I lost, you can put me down now." In just a short while, 1/10 of his soul power had been absorbed by the little azure dragon on his body. And the more he struggled, the faster his soul power drained away. Senior Seahorse, it's not that I don't want to put you down, but this soul skill, before it has exhausted its soul power, even I can't dispel it, Li Sun said apologetically. Seahorse Douluo's eyes widened immediately. Your soul skill is absorbing my soul power to strengthen itself. If you can't dispel it, then with the soul power within them plus the energy they gain from me, wouldn't it exist for a long time, Senior? Perhaps I wasn't clear enough. What I meant was that when this soul skill exhausts your soul power, it will automatically dissipate when it deems you no longer a threat. The atmosphere on the field became somewhat awkward. Seahorse Douluo lowered his head. At this moment, he didn't want to say another word. Being defeated by a junior was bad enough, but to be suspended in mid-air as a public spectacle after losing was simply too ruthless. A moment later, seemingly remembering something, Seahorse Douluo began to struggle violently, his soul power rapidly draining away. In less than half an hour, his soul power was completely devoured. Just then, the 12 small azure dragons, seemingly satiated, carried Seahorse Douluo slowly to the ground. Then, with a flash of light, they vanished as specks of golden light. Perhaps because he hadn't experienced the feeling of emptiness in a long time, Seahorse Douluo almost collapsed when his feet touched the ground. Having lost face, Seahorse Douluo remained silent, turning to the sacred pillar and painstakingly drawing a strange pattern on it with his index finger. With a final stroke, the pattern suddenly radiated golden light, then shot into the golden mark between Li Sun's brows. At the same time, a notification sound appeared in Li Sun's mind. Seahorse Sacred Pillar assessment passed. You are very strong, but the next assessment will be even more difficult. You can move on to the next Sacred Pillar. Looking at the mark between Li Sun's eyebrows, Seahorse Douluo thought for a moment and still said a few polite words. Thank you for your concern, Senior. Li Sun gave Seahorse Douluo an apologetic smile. However, we still have some things to finish, so we may have to apologize. What things? Seahorse Douluo was a little puzzled. Zhu Qing, wrong, Sister Yan, come quickly, it's your turn. Li Sun smiled and waved to the three girls in the distance. A moment later, Zhu Qing and the other two arrived at the circular island, heads down and faces red. Even Ningrong, the most thick-skinned of the three, was quite embarrassed by the situation. You all, Seahorse Douluo stared at Li Sun in disbelief, completely bewildered. Your soul skill was just a decoy. You deliberately left it on to drain my soul power. Senior, you misunderstand. I really can't dispel that soul skill, Li Sun said with an apologetic smile. I don't believe you, Li Sun said, smiling without speaking. Seahorse Douluo stared at Li Sun for a long time, then looked at Ningrong and the other two. You three are quite lucky. The three girls smiled and quickly bowed to Seahorse Douluo. Brother, Seahorse Douluo has been following us, on the way to the other sacred pillars. Besides Li Sun and his group of four, Seahorse Douluo had inexplicably followed them. It's alright, don't worry about him. Seahorse Douluo's experience wasn't unique. Next up were Sea Spear Douluo and Sea Illusion Douluo. If they encountered ordinary opponents, the illusionary spaces of Sea Illusion Douluo and Sea Spear Douluo might still be useful, such as allowing Tang San to witness Xiao Wu's sacrifice. However, encountering Li Sun was like being countered by a natural enemy. He didn't even need to lift a finger, simply releasing the heavenly dream ice silkworm was enough to end the battle. The Sea Spear Douluo, now without his support, was taken down in one go. But to make Ningrong and the other two's mission easier, Li Sun still used his ninth soul skill to drain the Sea Spear Douluo and Sea Illusion Douluo dry. The price, however, was that they each gained 2 more tails. Li Sun resolved the battle quickly, only wasting some time when the little azure dragon absorbed the soul power of the 3 Titled Douluos. When he led everyone to the sacred pillar guarded by the sea witch, surprise was clearly visible on her face. What's going on with you guys? The sea witch gently slapped the water's surface with her fishtail, curiously looking at the 3 Seahorse Douluo. You'll find out soon enough. Seahorse Douluo crossed his arms, feigning expertise, while the other 2 watched with amusement. The 7 sacred pillars had been together for many years. How could the sea witch not know there was something amiss? Based on the time it took Li Sun to defeat the first 3 sacred pillars, her previously playful expression immediately turned serious. With a slight movement of her left hand, a short black flute appeared in her grasp. She smiled at Li Sun. Be gentle, don't hurt me. The sea witch was a mermaid. Her perfect curves and stunning beauty, combined with her revealing black dress that barely covered her navel, made her incredibly alluring. The 3 women witnessed this, their embroidered brows furrowing slightly. Don't worry, Senior. Noticing the gazes behind him, Li Sun suppressed his smile and cupped his hands in a respectful gesture to the sea witch. The sea witch smiled brightly, but as soon as she said begin, she, like the others, stared in shock at Li Sun's spirit rings. Before she could react, Li Sun had closed in, and after only a few brief exchanges, the sea witch was bound by the little azure dragon. Ultimately, it was because she was being countered. Li Sun and the heavenly dream ice silkworm were immune to mental and environmental attacks. It's not good to ambush your sister. The sea witch twisted her waist in midair, displaying a captivating curve. After futile struggles and a depletion of soul power, a pitiful look slowly appeared on her face. You won't put me down now. Li Sun secretly glanced at the titled figures behind him, looking troubled. Seniors, I can't dispel this skill. Upon hearing this, the sea witch's eyes darted around, and she bit her lip. If you wanted to see me bound a little longer, just say so. Why did you have to do this? Before Li Sun could react, Ningrong, Zhu Xiaogang, and Du Yuyan's gazes towards the sea witch changed. Soon, the place turned into a spectacle of three girls beating up a mermaid grandmother, making all the holy pillars grin. Chapter 339 Test Results, Ice Explosion. With the defeat of the sea witch, Zhu Xiaogang and Du Yuyan's divine trials were also declared successful. Perhaps due to Li Sun's excessive assistance, the two only received one level of soul power and a total of 500 years of soul ring lifespan, but none of them cared about this small reward. After the rewards were given, Zhu Xiaogang's soul power reached level 78, while Du Yuyan, having obtained 2 soul bones and a 100,000-year soul ring, reached level 86, instantly becoming the one with the highest soul power among the 3 women. The divine trials continued, but apart from a sea dragon Douluo, there were no particularly strong individuals remaining. The 7 sacred pillars of the sea god were evenly distributed across Sea God Island, while the sea dragon sacred pillar was located closest to the center of the island. Looking towards the center from the sea dragon sacred pillar, one could clearly see Sea God Mountain, demonstrating its importance. You arrived here much faster than I expected, said the sea god Douluo, shirtless, calmly looking at Li Sun beneath the sea dragon sacred pillar. As a level 95 Titled Douluo, he could clearly sense the aura emanating from Li Sun and feel the danger contained within his body. Thank you for your kindness, seniors, Li Sun said with a smile, cupping his hands to Sea Dragon Douluo. Reaching level 95 as a Titled Douluo brings a qualitative leap, and Sea Dragon Douluo, as a Super Douluo, is far more valuable than the other 6. Just looking at his 2-meter height and bronze muscles, one can tell how powerful he is. Li Sun's soul power surged. He wanted to take advantage of this one-on-one opportunity to see what he could achieve without using his trump cards. Neither of them spoke again, but the chaotic aura around them indicated that their clash had begun. Just as Ningrong, wielding the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda, channeled several amplification spells into Li Sun's body, the two moved simultaneously. Wood release, advent of the world of trees, wood release, wood golem technique. Li Sun clapped his hands and stomped on the ground. 100-meter-tall wooden golem suddenly appeared, lifting him into the sky. A wooden dragon tens of meters long was wrapped around the golem. At the same time, the earth began to tremble, and thick vines sprouted from the earth, extending upwards into the sky, instantly forming a forest that surrounded Sea Dragon Douluo. It was like a gladiatorial arena. Without hesitation, Li Sun channeled his soul power into the wooden golem. The golem ripped off the wooden dragon wrapped around it and then slashed down at Sea Dragon Douluo. Having witnessed the fate of the 6 saint pillars, Sea Dragon Douluo was somewhat shaken when he saw the soul rings beneath Li Sun's feet, but not greatly affected. 9 standard titled soul rings, yellow, purple, black, 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 lit up beneath his feet. With a roar, his bronze skin was instantly covered in blue scales, and his already imposing physique grew even larger. Ripples of blue spread from Sea Dragon Douluo's body, and his thick arms gradually transformed into sharp dragon claws. Sea Dragon Douluo's martial soul was a sea dragon, its quality no less than that of the Blue Dot Overlord clan's martial soul, only their attributes differed, one was electric, the other water. Just then, Li Sun's attack arrived. Whoosh, the 100-meter-tall wooden figure possessed terrifying power, its vertical slash of the wooden dragon accompanied by a deafening roar. Sea Dragon Douluo looked up at the massive black shadow, seeing 3 spirit rings, 5, 6, and 7, flashing in succession beneath his feet. Martial soul possession, bang! Sea Dragon Douluo's legs bulged with veins as he leaped to the side, the floor beneath his feet cracking, and his entire body exploded forward. Boom! The wooden dragon slammed heavily onto the smooth, flat floor in front of the Sea Dragon sacred pillar, instantly denting it. Immediately afterward, smoke billowed, and the once pristine white stone floor around it crumbled into dust, scattering in all directions. Sea Dragon Douluo waved his hand, dispersing the flying debris and dust, and bent his legs, preparing to launch an attack on Li Sun atop the wooden figure. But at that moment, his body suddenly felt heavy, as if he were carrying a mountain on his back, and a nearly transparent shockwave struck him head-on. It was the combined power of 2 skills from Li Sun's Titan Giant Ape Left Arm Soul Bone, Gravity Mud Swamp and Titan Sky Break. Sea Dragon Douluo was a Titled Douluo and a powerful offensive soul master. Li Sun wouldn't give him a chance to attack. Using his soul power, he activated the surrounding vines to encircle him, and the wooden dragon also took the opportunity to draw an arc, trapping Sea Dragon Douluo within. Demon-slaying domain. Sea Dragon Douluo caught a glimpse of this out of the corner of his eye, his heart sinking. He quickly activated his domain, and the pressure on his body instantly eased. His domain didn't particularly benefit him personally, but it could break through an opponent's domain, making it less effective. Facing the vines surging from all directions, and the wooden dragon over 20 meters thick, the Sea Dragon Douluo's ninth spirit ring lit up, and his sharp dragon claws lashed out continuously, sending out sharp water blades tens of meters long in all directions. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Due to the age of the spirit rings and the nature of the attacks, the branches and vines shattered continuously. Each water blade cleared a large area, and the massive wooden dragon was covered in wounds, almost torn apart in a single exchange. However, Li Sun's strength in tree world descent was never the quality of the trees themselves, but their quantity. He lightly tapped the wooden figure's head, channeling his spirit power through the figure into the earth. The dwindling number of vines and branches was instantly replenished, and even more plants were sprouting from the earth. Extreme cold spreads. The wrath of the Ice Emperor. Li Sun's eighth spirit ring lit up, and sharp ice spears suddenly extended from his spine. Once fully exposed in the air, these spears slowly unfolded, forming scorpion-like limbs, along with a delicate scorpion tail. The diamond-like tail hook gleamed, and the surrounding temperature instantly plummeted, freezing the ring-shaped sea almost instantly under the enhancement of his eighth spirit skill. These two skills were not domain skills, and therefore were not affected by the Sea Dragon Douluo's domain. Feeling the chill emanating from his body, the Sea Dragon Douluo felt a chill run down his spine. Water attribute was countered by ice attribute, and fighting in this environment would be very disadvantageous for him. Knowing he had to break through quickly, the Sea Dragon Douluo's seventh and eighth spirit rings lit up, amplifying his body and causing it to expand several times over, increasing the number of water blades with each swing of his claws. Simultaneously, waves dozens of meters high surged outwards from him, attempting to submerge the surrounding vegetation and freeze it in the low temperature. He himself began to walk on the waves. But how could Li Sun's attack be so easily countered? Just as the waves were about to engulf the vines, the plants, which were not particularly tall to begin with, instantly extended upwards, covering the height of the seawater in a flash. Then, countless vines began to crackle with electrical currents, which, growing stronger with their sheer number, instantly flowed into the seawater. Hai Long Dao Long, moving through the water, was jolted by the electric shock. At that moment, a chill swept through, the seawater began to freeze, and countless vines were also frozen due to Li Sun's extraction of his soul power. At this instant, the central area of the perpetually spring-like Sea God Island was transformed into vast, white, frozen forest, astonishing the onlookers. Li Sun stood atop the wooden figure, looking down at the scene below, and smiled. He stretched out his right hand and lightly snapped his fingers. Ice explosion technique. Boom. 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 As his words fell, the once beautiful icy world shattered instantly, sending up waves of ice and snow tens of meters high. Chapter 340 Difficulty increased. Boom. 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 The sounds of ice explosions were incessant, and the ring-shaped sea was instantly obscured by a sky full of snowflakes and ice shards, turning the surrounding vegetation into a silvery white layer. If an ordinary person were to witness this scene, they might marvel at the beautiful scenery, but the titled powerhouses watching only felt the immense energy and power within it. The violent energy continued to overflow, momentarily obscuring the figure of the Sea Dragon Douluo, leading everyone to speculate about the current state of this powerful super-titled figure after being attacked. Li Sun's spiritual power spread out, and in a short moment, he locked onto the Sea Dragon Douluo within the range of the ice explosion. At this moment, the Sea Dragon Douluo was in a sorry state, with large areas of his hard scales peeling off, and traces of blood constantly flowing. His third, fourth, and fifth spirit rings shone brightly, as if he was using spirit skills to enhance himself and withstand the power of the explosion. Without hesitation, Li Sun lightly stepped on the head of the wooden dummy with his left foot, and the nearly 100-meter-long wooden dummy instantly moved crack, 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 with a series of creaking sounds. The wooden figure's two nearly 20-meter-long hands whipped up a whirlwind, unleashing an unparalleled force as they slapped towards Sea Dragon Douluo. Bang! The wooden figure's massive hand slammed shut as if swatting a mosquito, the powerful force compressing the surrounding air in all directions, creating a violent shockwave that dispersed the ice and snow within a 30-meter radius of its hands, revealing a vacuum whoosh. 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 The titled figures watching from the outside quickly intervened, dispersing the ice and snow rushing towards them, their eyes fixed on the center of the ring-shaped sea. How is this possible? Upon seeing the situation, Titled Douluo and the other 6 holy pillars exclaimed in astonishment. The arrangement of the 7 holy pillars on Seagoat Island was vastly different, all having an island in the center of the ring-shaped sea to enshrine the holy pillar. But now, the island of the sea dragon holy pillar had vanished, and the seawater had disappeared as well, revealing the pitted and uneven seabed, leaving only the sea dragon holy pillar standing alone in its place. A thought suddenly flashed through their minds. If it weren't for the protection of the sea god's divine power, the sacred pillar would likely have perished in the explosion. Li Sun stood atop the wooden figure, sensing the sea dragon Douluo's condition through its palm, slowly calming the surging soul power within him. He had held back during the attack, manipulating the wooden figure to maintain a slight arc in the center of its palm, preventing a single blow from turning the sea dragon Douluo into mincemeat. However, the powerful wind pressure and shockwaves still rendered the sea dragon Douluo incapable of resistance. His eyes glazed over, his head involuntarily swaying slightly, his entire being in a state of dizziness. Li Sun manipulated the wooden figure to open its palm, carefully placing it on the ground with his other hand. Such precise manipulation was difficult for a nearly 20-meter-tall behemoth, but he managed to achieve it with his powerful mental strength. With a bang, the wooden figure vanished in a puff of white mist. And Li Sun slowly flew to the sea dragon Douluo's side. Sea dragon Douluo was strong, but not strong enough. He still had many skills he hadn't used yet. However, this battle also made him clearly aware of his normal combat strength. Just then, the other 6 sacred pillars also gathered around. After carefully observing sea dragon Douluo's condition, they all breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Li Sun with complicated expressions. Having witnessed this battle, they knew that Li Sun's seemingly playful sneak attacks against them were actually him holding back. Everyone stood on the hard, circular seabed, and fell into silence. Because Sea Dragon Douluo was in a dazed state, he couldn't inscribe any marks on the sacred pillars. It was Ninjutsu and the other 2 girls who came over and livened up the atmosphere, preventing the Titled Douluo from feeling awkward. After a long while, Sea Dragon Douluo's mind slowly cleared, and only then did he show the after effects of the shock. Just as he tried to support himself to stand up, he suddenly vomited a mouthful of bile. Seeing this, Li Sun quickly stepped forward, placing his hand on the Sea Dragon Douluo's shoulder and using his soul power to heal his injuries and discomfort. "Thank you, I feel much better." The Sea Dragon Douluo turned back, his pale face forcing a smile at Li Sun. "Truly, the younger generation surpasses the older, almost killing me." His ancient face and bronze-like muscles made him seem more amiable when he joked. "This time, I won because you were careless, senior, and gained the upper hand. If we had fought again, the situation certainly wouldn't be like this now," Li Sun said with a smile. The Sea Dragon Douluo smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry about my feelings, a loss is a loss." He used his hands to support himself on the ground, slowly standing up, then stumbled, "Please excuse me, my head is still a little dizzy." The Sea Dragon Douluo smiled and waved to Li Sun and the other titled figures who wanted to help him up, then slowly walked to the Sea Dragon Sacred Pillar and painstakingly carved a symbol, challenge to Titled Douluo. Sea Dragon Sacred Pillar passed. As the voice rang out, the golden light flashed between Li Sun and Ninjutsu's brows, instantly replenishing their depleted soul power. The 5th trial of the Sea God has been passed. Due to the element of cheating that allowed others to pass, the reward has been reduced, granting only 5% Sea God affinity. However, since the trial time was less than 1/3, the reward is tripled, and the Sea God affinity increases by 10%. The difficulty of the 6th trial has increased. As the voice faded, a golden pillar of light descended from the sky, enveloping Li Sun and Ninjutsu. The 2 immediately felt a warm aura emanating from all directions, flowing into their limbs and bones, as if constantly improving their physique. The brow mark also subtly began to change. However, since the reward was split equally between Li Sun and Ninjutsu, each now possessing 25% Sea God affinity, this improvement was short-lived. Just then, Poseidon, who had been strolling along one side of Seagoat Island, suddenly sensed something, So fast. A moment later, she looked up, taking in the surrounding scenery, and her figure vanished from the spot. Before the Sea Dragon Sacred Pillar, the Sea Dragon Douluo looked at Li Sun and Ning Rongrong with complicated emotions, completely baffled by their current situation. If only Li Sun were undergoing the divine trial alone, his Seagoat affinity should have reached 50%. Passing the final 4 trials would allow him to touch the legendary divine position. But now, everything depended on the will of the gods. Brother, look at the 6th trial. Ning Rongrong, her face pale, tugged at Li Sun's sleeve. She had been terrified the moment she learned about the trial. Even Zhu Xiaogang and Du Guyan didn't look too good. Limit Douluo was already at the pinnacle of the continent, and Poseidon, backed by the Sea God Temple, could mobilize the power of the sea. Her strength was immeasurable. To withstand the full power of such a powerful figure, for even a stick of incense, was practically suicide. It's alright, I already checked. Li Sun patted Ning Rongrong's head and then reassured Zhu Xiaogang and Du Guyan. It seems you're very confident you can pass my test. Chapter 341 Poseidon Goes All Out. As a calm voice echoed, Poseidon appeared beside the Sea Dragon Pillar. Greetings, High Priestess. The 7 pillars bowed respectfully upon Poseidon's appearance. Greetings, High Priestess. Li Sun cupped his hands in greeting. I wouldn't call myself confident, but I believe the Sea God wouldn't set a test we can't pass. I see the divine test allows you to unleash your full power. I wonder if I should confront you head-on. Poseidon glanced at the devastation around the Sea Dragon Pillar. I was quite surprised when I learned about this divine test. It proves the Sea God is very aware of your strength. The information given to me, besides allowing you to choose the location, didn't contain any explicit restrictions, only telling me I could unleash my full power, so that means there are no rules or restrictions. A thoughtful glint flashed in Li Sun's eyes. Then I'll have to run away. The starting point of the challenge is fixed. If you can escape with the 3 of them after the initial challenge, feel free to try. Poseidon smiled slightly. I really want to try. Li Sun met Poseidon's gaze, smiling fearlessly. When you decide to begin, the challenge is up to you. Seeing Li Sun's confident demeanor, Poseidon felt no resentment, but instead nodded slightly. A strong person should face challenges and desperate situations head-on. Let's start now. Li Sun finished speaking and slowly pulled the 3 women backward. Only then did the 7 elders of Seagoat Island learn the content of Li Sun's divine test. Seeing Li Sun and Poseidon gradually creating distance, they actually prepared to attack. The 7 titled figures, who had been bewildered, instantly awoke, staring at Li Sun in shock. Who was Poseidon? She was one of the 3 strongest titled figures in the world. On this Seagoat Island, backed by the Sea God Temple and the sea, even Tang Chen of the Clear Sky Sect and Jin Daoliu of the Spirit Hall couldn't defeat her. It could be said that Poseidon on Seagoat Island was invincible, the undisputed number 1 in the Soul Master world, the strongest among humans. No one understood Poseidon's terror better than the 7 of them. Seeing Li Sun retreating, Poseidon didn't stop him. With a flick of her wrist, an incense stick appeared in her hand, which she then tossed to the Sea Dragon Douluo. Let's begin. Hearing this, the Sea Dragon Douluo nodded solemnly, carefully lighting the incense stick in front of him. Just then, Li Sun stopped. 2 figures suddenly appeared behind him, grabbing Zhu Xiaogang and Du Guyan and fleeing rapidly towards the outer edge of Seagoat Island. This time, unlike the Snow Empress's test, Poseidon was going all out, able to manipulate divine power and seawater. With his current strength, he couldn't withstand her head-on, let alone with the 3 women beside him. He summoned the water-cold sword with his left hand, lightly tapped the blade, and, choosing a direction, the water-cold sword shot out from his hand, hurtling straight towards the seahorse sacred pillar. But Li Sun, holding Ning Rongrong, showed no intention of moving, silently watching Poseidon. There always needs to be a target to draw the opponent's attention. With incomplete clone abilities, being targeted could easily lead to their destruction. Brother, Ning Rongrong clutched Li Sun's collar, looking up at him anxiously. It's alright, Li Sun patted her soft bottom, reassuring her. Once Zhu Qing and the others have retreated further, Poseidon will focus all her attention on the 2 of us. Brother, your comforting words only make me more scared, Ning Rongrong said helplessly. A very interesting ability, Poseidon smirked, watching the 2 clones gradually turn into black dots. However, it's useless no matter where you escape to. As she finished speaking, a red light suddenly appeared between her brows, followed by a dark red trident mark. With a surge of soul power, a sky blue phantom appeared behind her. This phantom was 30 meters tall, composed entirely of blue energy, its face blurred, its identity only confirmed by the trident in its hand. The sea god martial soul. Like Qian Renxue, Poseidon's martial soul was also a god. A powerful pressure descended, instantly enveloping the sky above Sea God Island. Trembling ensued. The 7 sacred pillars of Sea God Island lowered their heads, trembling like leaves, unable to look directly at the true face of the sea god. They were torn between pressure and excitement. As believers of the sea god, none of them wanted to miss witnessing his arrival. However, the pressure of their status prevented them from showing any disrespect. The residents scattered throughout Sea God Island had already prostrated themselves upon feeling the pressure. With the appearance of the sea god martial soul, a mountain seemed to press down on Li Sun, making it almost impossible for him to breathe. However, he did not retreat, but instead looked firmly at Poseidon. Courage is commendable, but unwise. Poseidon cupped her hands to her chest, and influenced by her soul power, the sea god martial soul slammed the trident heavily on the ground. A layer of blue light spread from her body outwards, instantly reaching the very edge of Sea God Island, and continued to expand. Boom! The wave surged, manipulated by Poseidon. The once calm seawater around the island began to surge violently, then rolled back up, flowing upwards like a curtain of water gradually encircling the sky. The seawater on Poseidon Island was also drawn up, slowly rising into the air, forming vertical barriers that connected with the water curtain above, dividing Poseidon Island into areas of different sizes. Is this how one borrows the power of a god? Li Sun looked up at the flowing water curtain. Let's begin now. After Poseidon finished speaking, he shot out instantly, arriving in front of Li Sun in the blink of an eye. This terrifying speed made Li Sun's heart skip a beat. He quickly activated his soul power, and when Poseidon's hand swung down with terrifying power, his entire figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, Li Sun was already 2,000 meters away, holding Ningrong. He recalled the water-cold sword and shot out in one direction, while he also created 2 clones. As soon as the 2 clones appeared, they scattered and sped off in other directions. Another decent skill is its special attribute. A hint of surprise flashed in Poseidon's eyes, quickly disappearing. However, using the same method again will greatly reduce its effectiveness. 9 spirit rings, 1 black and 1 red, appeared beneath her feet in succession. 7th spirit skill, true form of the sea god. 3rd spirit skill, gaze of the sea god. Poseidon's lips parted slightly, and the 3rd and 7th spirit rings beneath her feet lit up in succession. A phantom image of the sea god, much clearer than before, appeared behind her. As a golden light was thrown into the sky by the sea god, a golden halo covering half the island appeared on the originally pale blue sky. Immediately afterwards, enormous blue hands stretched out from the sky, grabbing at Li Sun in all directions. You have nowhere to escape. An immense suction force emerged from the blue giant hands, but it had no effect on the surrounding things, only affecting Li Sun and the 3 women. Chapter 342 Running away has never been in Li Sun's nature. At that moment, it was as if a huge hole had appeared in the sky, and more than a dozen blue, towering hands reached out from it, grabbing at all directions of Sea God Island. Instantly, Li Sun, located in various parts of Sea God Island, sensed it and looked up at the sky. Suddenly, a tremendous suction force appeared from those towering hands, as if trying to pull them in. Wood clone technique. Li Sun's eyes narrowed, not daring to delay any longer. With a hand seal, clones split off from his body again, scattering in all directions. His 5th spirit ring lit up, and a series of azure spears appeared in his hands. He aimed carefully and hurled them, planting them in various locations on the island. Although Li Sun's 5th spirit skill wasn't strong, it had a unique feature. It would persist as long as he didn't retrieve it. The suction force grew stronger and stronger, and gradually, more and more clones were targeted. Only then did Li Sun realize that no matter which direction he fled, he would be locked onto by a mental force. Is it the same type as my location tracking? Knowing he couldn't escape, the clone split again and then deliberately dissipated to avoid wasting its soul power. Li Sun's main body also felt a mental force locking him, but unlike the clone, his mental power was vast, and he had Xiaogang and Bindi as reinforcements in his spiritual sea. Before Poseidon's mental force could mark him, he created a mental barrier and then vanished. At this moment, the island was filled with azure spears, which Li Sun could continuously traverse using the flying thunder god technique. Poseidon also realized her skill had failed, her eyes narrowed, and her 5th soul ring lit up. 5th soul skill, sea god summoning. all beasts accompany." As she finished speaking, countless bulges slowly appeared in the water curtain in the sky, and then 10-meter-long phantoms of sea soul beasts emerged from the water curtain, swooping down from the sky towards various parts of Sea Soul Island. The water curtain barriers erected everywhere did the same. Poseidon, accompanied by countless sea spirit beasts, slowly ascended into the sky. Her expression was unusually calm, her steps slow and deliberate, as if victory were assured and death indifferent. Suddenly, several enormous figures appeared on the ground, some nearly 700 meters tall, others around 100 meters. These towering figures all shared one characteristic: thousands of arms were mounted on their backs. 1,000-armed Buddhas. Poseidon stopped in mid-air, carefully observing the movements of these Buddhas. This was the first time she had witnessed Li Sun's skill, and the sight of those colossal Buddhas filled her with a sense of wonder. As a peak-level expert, she could roughly guess the power these behemoths could unleash upon first sight. And indeed, she was right. These 1,000-armed Buddhas, upon appearing, launched a fierce attack on the sea spirit beasts filing the sky, their thousands of arms simultaneously extending upwards, creating a series of afterimages. Each strike cleared a large area of the sea spirit beasts in the air. At this moment, the residents of Sea God Island looked up at the sky, seemingly terrified. First, the sea god appeared, spreading his oppressive aura. Just as they were overjoyed, a terrifying arm appeared in the sky, followed by countless sea spirit beasts descending. These scenes were like divine punishment. The sea god is angry. Someone suddenly raised their hands, crying and falling to the ground, repeatedly kowtowing. This triggered a chain reaction among the other residents, and Sea God Island was thrown into chaos. Suddenly, a resident widened his eyes and pointed at the 1,000-armed Buddha that had suddenly appeared outside the city. "Look, what is that?" Hearing this, many people looked up blankly, then their heads tilted higher and higher. What is that? Do you think the sea god has come to save us?" Someone pointed at the Buddha that was blocking the sea spirit beasts outside the city. "Bullshit, you've seen the sea god's statue before." Then, could it be some other god? Above Sea God Island, Sea Dragon Douluo looked at the enormous 1,000-armed Buddha statue diagonally below, the incense in his hand trembling, and a layer of cold sweat broke out on his back. Even the 6 holy pillars, including Heilong Douluo, couldn't help but swallow hard. It's fortunate that Lord Li Sun didn't use this skill when challenging the holy pillars. Unconsciously, their way of addressing Li Sun had changed. Indeed extraordinary. Poseidon slowly walked to the spot, calmly meeting Li Sun's perspective from below. "I hope you can continue running." The incense had burned halfway down. 9th soul skill, Sea God's imprisonment. Poseidon's 9th soul ring lit up, a beam of light shooting from her body into the air, tearing open a golden crack. Countless golden rays of light surged from the crack, condensing into chains that rushed towards Li Sun. Poseidon's 9th soul ring had 2 skills, Sea God's descent and Sea God's imprisonment. Sea God's descent was Poseidon's strongest skill, summoning a phantom of the sea god with 20% of his power, unleashing a powerful attack. However, its weakness was also obvious. Once this skill was used, her 9th soul ring would be sealed, which would be extremely disadvantageous if she didn't achieve a great feat. The second skill, Sea God's imprisonment, is a powerful lock-on control skill. Once activated, there is no escape unless it hits. Furthermore, its control is extremely strong. Upon hitting the target, it seals all their soul power. Unless she personally releases it, the person will be unable to mobilize any soul power for life. Li Sun is too fast. Poseidon wouldn't risk using the first skill of her 9th soul ring, so the second skill is undoubtedly the best choice now. Countless golden chains descended from the sky, instantly scattering in all directions. Half of the 6th trial's time remained. If hit by this skill, everything would be over. Seeing the chains rushing towards him, Li Sun's expression became more serious. His figure suddenly disappeared, reappearing at the edge of Sea God Island. At this moment, the sea spirit beasts summoned by Poseidon continued to emerge from the water curtain, pouncing on Li Sun upon seeing him. Li Sun naturally couldn't be entangled at this time. Carrying Ning Rongrong, his figure disappeared again. Poseidon watched from high above as Li Sun flashed across various locations on Sea God Island, a strange light flickering in her eyes. She hadn't expected such a bizarre special skill to exist. It was bizarre because she couldn't detect any fatigue in Li Sun, as if the skill had no cooldown. And the teleportation distance is incredibly vast. Knowing that time would soon be up, Poseidon wanted to test Li Sun's limits. Her soul power and spiritual energy surged forth. Poseidon had unleashed all her strength, causing the golden crack in the sky to widen several times over. Golden chains burst forth from the crack like a gushing golden ocean. Li Sun and his clones dodged constantly, but the golden chains relentlessly pursued them. Gradually, Poseidon had roughly pinpointed all of Li Sun's teleportation locations. However, one thing puzzled her: the two clones carrying Zhu Xiuqing and Du Yuyan had vanished without a trace. One after another, the clones were struck, feeling their soul power completely restricted, and they committed suicide to return their soul power to their main body. Even Li Sun himself felt the pressure. There were no fewer than 30 or 40 golden chains targeting him now, and this number was increasing as time went on. Time was running out. Li Sun silently calculated the time in his mind. Running away had never been in his nature. Even if he was a peak powerhouse, he had to fight back. He also wanted to see how a peak powerhouse like Poseidon would react when hit by his and Ningrongron's martial soul fusion technique. Although Poseidon was strong, her mental strength was only comparable to Tang San's. Li Sun looked firmly in Poseidon's direction, and one of his clones on the other side of the island immediately understood, summoning the water-cold sword and attacking Poseidon. But the price was this brief pause. The clone was entangled by the chains, but seeing that its goal had been achieved, the clone grinned and committed suicide. Clang, Poseidon casually deflected the flying sword and then focused her gaze on it. As she predicted, Li Sun, carrying Ningrong, instantly appeared at the location of the flying sword. "You want to fight me head-on? Or do you have a trump card you haven't used?" Poseidon smiled, speaking casually and confidently. But her response wasn't Li Sun, but a colossal 1,000-armed Buddha statue and a 9-colored pagoda. Buddha holding the pagoda, the compassionate crossing. Chapter 343 Poseidon in the Tower. Buddha's pagoda, compassionate crossing. A radiant light shone high above Seagoat Island, and a colossal, 1,000-armed Buddha statue sat majestically in the void. The 9-tiered pagoda it once held had vanished, instantly enveloping Poseidon's head. A soul fusion skill, Poseidon only glanced at it before recognizing its form and characteristics. She raised her head, silently watching the 9 treasures glazed pagoda envelop her. She didn't choose to dodge, as her limit Douluo, even with her soul power depleted, she wouldn't fear Li Sun's attacks. Although the sea god had ordered her to unleash her full power in this test, Poseidon knew she had already lost from the start. The sea god had only allowed her to obstruct, not kill, Li Sun. If that was the case, even if she could stop Li Sun the first time, what about the second, the third? As the light gradually dimmed, Poseidon curiously surveyed the environment inside the pagoda. Meanwhile, outside, Li Sun was being pursued by dozens of golden chains. Poseidon's skill didn't dissipate while she was controlled, it was as if the two had severed ties. Calculating the time and glancing at the last bit of incense in the sea dragon Douluo's hand, Li Sun knew he couldn't dodge and gave up resisting. As dozens of golden chains pierced his body, he felt his soul power stagnate, rendering him completely powerless. He could no longer maintain his levitation and plummeted straight to the ground. Fortunately, his clone hadn't dissipated and caught Li Sun and Ningrong just before they hit the ground. But immediately afterward, the clone's soul power was sealed. As Li Sun landed, a large number of golden chains, like sharks smelling blood, instantly pounced. Li Sun quickly shielded Ningrong in his arms. "There are too many." Inside the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda, Poseidon strolled through the void, curiously observing her surroundings. The space here had changed since she was completely enveloped. The lush starry sky, the seemingly tangible planets, everything in the void seemed so novel. Although she knew it was just an illusion or trickery generated by her soul skill, it still amazed Poseidon, who had never left Seagoat Island. "Poseidon, is this soul skill simply controlling me here?" Curious, she raised her hand and sent a wisp of soul power into the void, but it didn't cause the slightest ripple. The defensive ability is not bad. A smile appeared on Poseidon's lips, but at some point, her location and environment changed. The scenery in the space kept changing and began to spin rapidly. A wave of dizziness hit Poseidon's brain. She guessed it was an illusion and quickly used her mental power to resist it. After a while, the dizziness disappeared, and the scenery before Poseidon's eyes spread out like ripples on water. She seemed to have returned to her youth. "This illusion looks pretty good." She raised her hand, looked at her clothes, and then at Tang Chen and Jin Daoliu in front of her. A rare look of joy appeared on Poseidon's face. "Poseidon, we're leaving today. The next time we meet will be the day I become a god," Tang Chen said confidently with a smile. Jin Daoliu beside him nodded with a smile, but said nothing more. Poseidon didn't mind, and looked at Tang Chen with a smile. Alright, I'll wait for you. Tang Chen was confident and powerful at this moment. At only 30-something, he was already one of the top experts on the continent, surpassing all his peers. If it weren't for Seagoat Island, Poseidon believed she wouldn't be his match. Poseidon knew Tang Chen had a family and children before coming to the island, but Tang Chen had said it was just a family arrangement to continue his powerful bloodline, and there was no romantic feeling between them. Strong people always respect each other. Although she had never left Seagoat Island, her strength was already top tier. No one dared to disrespect her, and because of her status as High Priestess, no one dared to approach her. Until the arrival of Jin Daoliu and Tang Chen. If Tang Chen could really return as promised, then he might not be a bad match for her. The scene before Poseidon's eyes flashed by like ripples on water, gradually leaving her alone in the sea god's temple. Coldness and loneliness became her constant companions. More than 30 years passed in this way, and Poseidon was now over 70. On this day, her stagnant life finally saw a ripple. Two men claiming to be Tang Chen's grandsons arrived on the island, saying their grandfather had brought her a letter. Have you found any clues to the divine succession? Poseidon carefully put a letter away, a long-lost smile returning to her face. Time flew by again, and 40 more years passed in a flash. On this day, a young man named Li Sun arrived on the island with 3 girls. Seeing the young man's talent and cultivation speed, far surpassing Tang Chen's, Poseidon knew her time was running out. As she had expected, the young man easily passed the sea god's trials and stood before her. It was then that she learned of Tang Chen's death. Yes, it seems like more than 70 years have passed, Poseidon thought with a sense of loss. Over the years, she had actually anticipated this, but when it was truly before her, Poseidon still felt a pang of sadness. Extreme powerhouses could fly back and forth across the continent in just 2 or 3 days. Tang Chen hadn't set foot on the island for over 70 years, so death was inevitable. Time flew by, and the young man named Li Sun grew stronger at an astonishing pace, until that moment arrived, the moment of sacrifice. Poseidon's soul drifted in the air, and gradually, the surrounding scenery began to change again. Amidst the rippling water, the scene returned to the moment he parted with Tang Chen and Jin Daoliu. Poseidon, we're leaving today. The next time we meet will be the day I become a god, Tang Chen said confidently with a smile. Poseidon glanced at her clothes, then looked blankly at the two before her. After a long while, she smiled. Alright, I'll wait for you. 30 years later, Tang Hao and Tang Xiao returned with another letter. Poseidon accepted it and carefully placed it in an exquisite wooden box filled with letters. 40 years later, Li Sun arrived with 3 girls, having passed through layers of trials with their immense talent and strength, and stood before her. Poseidon, we are leaving today. The next time we meet will be the day I become a god, Tang Chen said confidently with a smile. Poseidon stared blankly at the two before her, saying nothing, only nodding quietly. 30 years later, Tang Chen's 2 grandsons came to the island, presenting a letter. Poseidon didn't open the letter, but quietly placed it on an exquisite wooden box. On top of the box was a thick stack of envelopes with the same handwriting and signature. 30 years, 70 years, Poseidon slumped wearily into her chair. Lost in thought. This was the only thing she could do here, on this island. Whether intentional or simply the nature of this illusion, she had remained conscious throughout, unaffected by the illusion. And because of this, she now felt that her long-held beliefs were somewhat laughable. She had considered killing Li Sun and the others to see what would happen if she didn't sacrifice herself, but ultimately gave up. Poseidon knew her fate was unrelated to that young man. Even without him, someone else would inherit the divine position on Seagoat Island. As long as Tang Chen didn't come, her destiny would be fixed on Seagoat Island until death. Would Tang Chen come? The answer was yes, because even after 30 years, he still remembered their promise, abandoning the Haoshan sect to resolutely search for the divine position. But he also wouldn't, because he hadn't reappeared in over 70 years. Poseidon was weary. She had waited for Tang Chen for countless reincarnations, but each time she only received a letter from his 2 grandsons. In her spare time, she couldn't help but wonder, what was Tang Chen doing for the first 30 years? Chapter 344 Breaking Free from Shackles. Soul Masters gain the ability to fly once they reach the title level. However, everyone's flight speed is different. Generally speaking, Soul masters with flying beast martial souls are faster. But this does not include those at the limit level. Their strength has already broken through the limitations. Level 99 and below is like a watershed, with a qualitative difference in both physical attributes and soul power. Poseidon hadn't calculated her own flight speed, but roughly estimated that if she wanted, she could traverse the entire continent in a day. Meanwhile, Tang Chen, who was also at the limit level and had no limitations, and who possessed the continent's #1 sect, the Clear Sky sect, had taken 30 years to find even a trace of him. 30 years, 70 years, in this illusion, Poseidon gradually fell into thought. Contemplation was one of the few things she could use to pass the time. For 30 years, Tang Chen has had 3 generations living together, while I, driven by a youthful infatuation and a promise, have been waiting here in vain. Poseidon rubbed her throbbing temples. He's dead. Just then, the brothers Tang Xiao and Tang Hao arrived, saying their grandfather had a letter for her. Poseidon straightened her chair and said to the outside of the hall, I won't see them. Let them go. Time continued to flow slowly, but the illusion did not end. The letter suddenly appeared on her desk. Frustrated, Poseidon picked up the letter and destroyed it with her soul power. Brother, why is the environment Senior Poseidon experienced different from that of Liu Erlong and Yu Xiaogang? Ning asked curiously. The illusion experienced by Yu Xiaogang, Liu Erlong, and Flander involved multiple changing scenes, and the illusion constantly pulled them down through emotional manipulation. But Poseidon was clearly different. She not only maintained her rationality, but the illusion scene was also limited to Seagoat Island. Li soon steadied himself on the ground and placed Ning Rongrong on the ground. This might be related to her personal experiences. You can study our martial soul fusion skill when you have time. It's not simply about causing others to collapse and despair in an illusion. It's a soul skill that can truly liberate the soul, but the prerequisite is that the person must have a pure mind, and be trapped in their own predicament due to a momentary obsession rather than malice. The reason Poseidon remained in one scene is twofold. Firstly, the events affecting her emotions only existed in that scene, and secondly, she has experienced too little and visited too few places. Li soon looked up at the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda high in the sky. At this moment, the fusion skill was about to disappear due to the imbalance between his soul power and Ning Rongrong's soul power, which was now suppressed. Otherwise, this skill could have lasted for 10 minutes. But this was for the best, since Poseidon had already experienced enough in less than a minute. She was indeed a kind person. This soul skill did not have a significant impact on her. Although Li Sun's soul power was suppressed, his mental power could still be used. Although he had blocked out a lot of the complex information in the illusion, he could still clearly perceive Poseidon's changes. Gradually, the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda became illusory, turning into specks of golden light that drifted into the air, revealing Poseidon inside. However, at this moment, she was frowning, seemingly lost in thought, unaware of the changes around her. Seeing that Poseidon seemed unharmed, Sea Dragon Douluo and the other 6 holy pillars exchanged glances, somewhat puzzled. Just as they were about to speak, Sea Dragon Douluo suddenly remembered the incense still burning in his hand and fell silent. How much time is left? After a long while, Poseidon's calm voice entered Sea Dragon Douluo's ears. Less than half a minute left. Sea Dragon Douluo held the incense in front of him and said respectfully. Poseidon nodded slightly, then turned her gaze to Li Sun on the ground, and her figure suddenly disappeared. It's over. It seems Li Sun is going to fail. Sea Dragon Douluo sighed. Yes, what a pity, but being able to hold out against a high priest using his full power for so long is something to be proud of. Seahorse Douluo and the Sea Witch discussed in hushed tones. Li Sun smiled and looked at Poseidon not far away. Senior, the time should be up by now, right? About 10 seconds left, but never mind. Poseidon gave Li Sun a deep look, did not choose to fly, but turned to walk towards Sea God Mountain. Since Senior doesn't want to fight, how about releasing my soul power seal? Li Sun said, looking at Poseidon's back. Poseidon paused for a moment, but did not answer, and slowly walked out of Li Sun's sight. Sea God's 6th trial completed. Survived an attack from an ultimate expert for the duration of an incense stick burning. Although there was a slight flaw at the end, it does not detract from the overall excellence. Sea God's affinity increased by 10%, and each of them increased by 10%. A golden light flashed between Li Sun and Ning Rongrong's brows, and a familiar feeling surged into their bodies again, as the consumption of the battle just now was instantly restored. However, The seal imposed by Poseidon had not been lifted. Li soon guessed this might be because Poseidon and the sea god shared the same power. Brother, you scared me to death. We were almost winning. Why did you provoke her? Ningrong patted her chest. She hadn't dared to breathe loudly just now, fearing that Poseidon might kill her and Li soon in a fit of anger. Li soon smiled and gently rubbed Ningrong's cheek with his large hand. You don't understand. She won't make a move. This was the tragedy and helplessness of a divine servant, not only Poseidon but also Qian Renxue. However, the only thing Qian Renxue could find solace in was that his granddaughter, Qian Renxue, was his successor. As for Poseidon, she probably only had resignation and kindness left. That's too dangerous, Ningrong pouted. Just then, Xiaogang and Douluo were also brought over by the clone. From the very beginning of the trial, the two clones continuously created new clones to confuse Poseidon, while the two women were taken underground and hidden. This was also why Li soon had dragged Ningrong along to draw Poseidon's attention. Are you injured? Xiaogang and Douluo immediately surrounded Li soon with concern upon arrival. Li soon raised his hands, saying nothing, and watched the two grope each other with a smile. Reaching this stage of the divine trial meant they had already passed the most important hurdle, and Xiaogang and Douluo no longer needed to face any risks. Although they had passed through a trick, the sea god still granted each of them a level of soul power and a 500-year boost to their soul rings. Thus, Xiaogang's soul power reached level 79, while Douluo's soul power reached level 86. This made Li soon look at Douluo in surprise, marveling that those who leveled up first were indeed paving the way, while those who leveled up later progressed even faster. Sister Yan, what is your final trial? Li soon asked curiously. Witnessing the sea god's trident, Douluo said somewhat shyly. Along the way, she did nothing but gained plenty of benefits, and now she can even level up just by standing by and watching. Li soon chuckled and patted her little bottom. Isn't that good? Let's go back and rest for a bit. I'll go find Poseidon later to remove the seal on my soul power. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Because of your kindness. The morning sun shone on the faces of the sleepers, ringing the alarm clock for those unwilling to rise early. Li soon rubbed his eyes, stretched, and quietly stepped over the sleeping Xiaogang, getting out of bed. It proved that even with his soul power sealed, his physique remained formidable. Without waking the three, Li soon washed up and headed towards the Sea God Temple. He had been traveling back and forth on Sea God Island for almost 3 years, but this was his first time approaching this place. Climbing the steps, the solemn and magnificent Sea God Temple came into view. The ancient stone pillars in front of the temple were carved with various intricate patterns. Upon closer inspection, one could recognize that these patterns all originated from various sea spirit beasts. Slowly walking inside, the sea dragon Douluo seemed to have been waiting for him for a long time. Lord Li soon, the high priest is waiting for you. Thank you, Li soon said, bowing slightly. The temple of Poseidon was sparsely decorated, best described as simple. Though vast, its 4 windows were tightly closed, making it somewhat dim. In this environment, his mind remained undisturbed, and his resolve was resolute. Li soon thought to himself, then approached the outer perimeter of the hall, surrounded by pillars resembling sacred pillars. Greetings, Senior Poseidon, are you planning to pass the 7th trial today? Poseidon calmly turned around, and with a flick of her wrist, removed all the chains binding Li soon's body. He sensed his soul power and stretched his body. Li soon smiled and said, I'm actually not in a hurry. If the high priest has anything else to do that requires some time, I can wait. Time. Poseidon's eyes flashed, and she quickly guessed what was going on. You know, could it be that your and Ningrong's martial soul fusion skill can also pry into other people's memories? This skill is beyond our control. It was truly unintentional. Please forgive me, High Priest. They say old people are shrewd, and Li soon wasn't going to lie to Poseidon. Hell, whether unintentional or intentional, the fact remains that you pry into my memories. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? Poseidon walked to the throne in the temple, turned around, and sat down, a half smile on her face. No, although I haven't had much contact with a high priest, I have a general understanding of your personality. Li Sun didn't hide anything and walked to a chair to sit down. Oh. You know my personality? Tell me about it. Poseidon became interested. Because you are kind, whether it's due to the restrictions of the sea god or the restrictions of your status, you have never hindered our trials from beginning to end, have you? And you showed me mercy in yesterday's trials. I am not as kind as you think, but I knew my fate and no longer wanted to make a futile struggle. Poseidon turned to look at the sea god statue behind her. This is also my mission as the high priest of the sea god. After all, even if you are gone, another successor to the sea god will come. A gentleman judges by his actions, not his intentions. Li Sun shook his head. Your actions are 1,000 times better than many people who talk a good game but act against morality. Poseidon smiled. I really should have met you sooner. It's not too late now. Indeed, it's not too late. The last 2 trials of your sea god 9 trials should still take a few more years. I can still hear a few more good things about you, Poseidon teased. Upon hearing this, Li Sun pondered for a moment. Just as Poseidon's curiosity was piqued, he solemnly asked, if I told you that you could continue living even after the divine trial, would you believe me, and would you be willing to continue existing in this world? Poseidon paused, her smile fading. She didn't question the truth of Li Sun's words, but instead began to seriously consider them. After a moment, she said, I don't know. I've never thought about this kind of question, and I don't know what reason I have to live anymore. It's not for Tang Chen, but because I've worshipped the sea god for 100 years. Am I supposed to spend the remaining 100 years here guarding this place? Poseidon surveyed the cold, desolate scene within the hall. Her faith in the sea god had always been devout, but after yesterday's countless cycles of time and sacrifices within the 9 treasures glazed pagoda, it seemed her faith had been completely drained. The reason she didn't attack Li Sun at the last minute yesterday was partly because she was tired, and partly because, as he said, her heart was kind. I understand, Li Sun said knowingly. I know your current situation. You've lost your goals and perseverance, and are lost in confusion. This is easy to solve. Just set another goal. A goal, Poseidon murmured, then shook her head slightly after a moment's thought. In terms of strength, I'm already among the top on the continent. In terms of power, I'm the island lord of Seagoat Island, the high priest. What could possibly be my goal? You've never left Seagoat Island to see the world since you were a child, have you? Why not travel around and experience the beauty of this world? It would be better than coming to this world in vain. Li Sun smiled sincerely. Besides, your cultivation has reached its peak. If you have the opportunity, becoming a god isn't impossible. Poseidon was somewhat tempted when she heard the first part of Li Sun's words. She had considered taking a final trip to Seagoat Island a couple of days ago, and now hearing about the outside world broadened her horizons. However, upon hearing the latter part of Li Sun's words, she laughed. As the high priest of the sea god, I possess the sea god's divine power. How could other gods risk offending the sea god to grant me the opportunity to become a god for my sake? Furthermore, regardless of whether Tang Chen diligently searched for the inheritance in the first 30 years, judging from the lack of news in the last 40 years, even if the inheritance is found, it's not so easy to obtain. You're currently undergoing divine trials. You should understand this deeply. Right, I haven't understood it at all. Isn't everything quite easy? Li Sun smiled and spread his hands. Besides, the opportunity I'm talking about isn't with any other god, but with me. Fine, I admit, you are indeed different from us mortals. Poseidon laughed in exasperation. But you say my opportunity to become a god lies with you? Using such a childish excuse, are you trying to trick me into becoming your henchman? How can you call it deception? Li Sun casually found a chair, sat down, and crossed his legs. High priest, you worship the sea god, and I am the future sea god. Helping me now is helping the sea god. Isn't it? Xiaogang and I are your future faith. The last 2 trials of the sea god's assessment are extremely difficult. If you suffer a backlash, death is common. You are currently just a candidate. With that little girl Xiaogang sharing the sea god's affinity with you, your sea god candidate status isn't pure. Poseidon also imitated Li Sun, crossing her long legs, seemingly unconvinced by Li Sun's claim to be the future sea god. It might be a bit difficult, but with your help, wouldn't Xiaogang and I have a greater chance of becoming gods? Li Sun revealed his pearly white teeth. Poseidon narrowed her eyes, slowly lowering her long, snow-white legs and leaning forward. I can't help you pass the divine trial, or offer you any assistance during it. You don't need to help me during the divine trial. Just helping me become stronger is the greatest help you can give me. Thinking of the remaining powerful soul beasts, Li soon smiled. Qian was too powerful to consider for now. But the evil emperor and Xiaogang, once he became stronger, the two of them combined could surely defeat him. More importantly, Li soon remembered that besides the deep-sea demon whale king, there was also a sea princess with 600,000 years of cultivation in the ice sea. With Poseidon, the invincible of the ocean, by his side, the other invincible of the ocean would likely give him some face. Seeing Poseidon's serious expression, Li soon smiled and said, "Besides, you can also look around, can't you?" Chapter 346 Wasp Sting. The situation on Douluo Continent was constantly changing. Just when everyone thought the Heaven Dao Empire was dormant and the Star Luo Empire could have some time to recuperate, the Spirit Empire dealt a heavy blow to the Star Luo Empire. With far more titled powerhouses and Spirit Master armies than the Heaven Dao Empire, it rapidly annexed a third of the Star Luo Empire's territory. Of course, this was also inextricably linked to the Clear Sky sect's sudden announcement of withdrawal. Now, the Clear Sky sect was universally condemned within the Star Luo Empire, and other forces on the continent also scorned them. However, although it announced it would not participate in the upcoming war, due to the relationship between the Heaven Dao Empire and the Spirit Empire, the Clear Sky sect still found a place within the Star Luo Empire's territory to hide. The Fierce Claw Mountains, the Clear Sky sect's current secluded place. "You beast. You actually poisoned me." The seventh elder collapsed to the ground, panting heavily, one hand clutching his chest, the other hand weakly raised, pointing tremblingly at Tang San. He didn't know what kind of poison he had been given. He wanted to warn them, but he felt he didn't even have the strength to open his mouth or raise his hand. Tang San, a cold smile playing on his lips, unleashed 8 spider spears from his back, piercing the seventh elder's body. To deal with this titled elder, he had searched the starred out Great Forest for a long time before crafting a wasp stinger, ranked 5th among hidden weapons in the Xuantian treasure record. This weapon wasn't as domineering as the Yama's decree, but it was incredibly vicious. Even a slight scratch would render the entire body immobile, while not immediately fatal. Without treatment, the heart would gradually weaken until death. When using this weapon, Tang San, fearing the titled elder would dodge, deliberately didn't use any hidden weapon techniques, instead piercing the opponent's skin at close range. For the past 10 days, he had endured no shortage of the seventh elder's mockery and insults in search of this opportunity. A death sentence. Seeing the seventh elder's lips still twitching slightly as he lay dying, Tang San's eyes turned cold, and he immediately increased the section force of the 8 spider spears. In less than a moment, the seventh elder had lost all moisture and was lifeless. Suddenly, footsteps sounded outside the seventh elder's room. "Is seventh grandfather in? He should be. I saw him this morning." Tang San's heart skipped a beat. He retracted the 8 spider lances into his body, his eyes darted around, and he grabbed the seventh elder, throwing him onto the bed and carefully wrapping him in the blanket. He did all this extremely quickly. Tang San used ghost shadow perplexing steps to instantly appear at the door, gently opening it. When he saw the person who came in, he narrowed his eyes. "Don't make a sound." The seventh elder said he wanted to rest for a while and just closed his eyes. "What are you doing here, you piece of trash from the Tang Hao family?" The person who came in was a young man who was close to 20 years old. He was clearly stunned when he saw Tang San. "Tang Ling, you'd better say less, or the sect master will hold you accountable." Tang Long gently pushed Tang Ling's arm. The Haoshan sect is in such a state, and the sect master is still siding with them. They're truly a family. Tang Ling sneered. "So what if they hold me accountable? The Haoshan sect has fallen to this state. Isn't it because of their father-son relationship?" Tang Ling said through gritted teeth. Now, the Clear Sky sect not only deeply dislikes Tang Hao and his son Tang San, but also harbors strong resentment towards sect master Tang Xiao. Seeing several more people approaching because of Tang Ling's shouting, Tang San suppressed his killing intent, stepped out of the room, and then quietly closed the door behind him. Due to its conditions, the Clear Sky sect's current secluded location lacks pavilions, towers, stone fortresses, and caves. It resembles a village, where any unexpected events would be immediately reported. He was currently in the very center of this village, and if he didn't want the seventh elder's affair to be discovered so quickly, he had no choice but to remain silent. "I know the sect has a lot of complaints about my father and me, but there are many things beyond our control. Now I am repentant. which is why I come every day to listen to the seventh elder's teachings. Tang San sighed, walked to the two men, and clasped his hands in a fist salute, saying, all the mistakes are Tang San's fault. If you two want to vent your emotions, you are welcome to do so at any time. However, the seventh elder has just gone to sleep. How about I accompany you to another place to listen to his teachings? After speaking, Tang San gestured for them to leave and walked out of the seventh elder's courtyard first. Tang San remembered this young man vividly. He remembered that when he first returned to the Clear Sky sect, it was this man who had insulted him and his father. If he had the chance, he wouldn't mind killing this man. HMPH. Sycophant. Tang Ling spat on the ground, turned around, and walked away. Tang Long looked at the two men, sighed, and chased after Tang Ling. Tang San had indeed changed a lot in the 10 days since his return. He wasn't annoyed by the seventh elder's sarcastic remarks. Instead, he spent his days by the seventh elder's side. His attentive demeanor was both surprising and contemptible. However, the seventh elder seemed to appreciate this somewhat. Although he still verbally attacked, his attitude was noticeably less hostile. This made the younger generation of the Clear Sky sect somewhat uncomfortable. Tang Ling walked on, growing angrier with each passing moment. No, I have to warn seventh grandfather to be careful, lest he be deceived by Tang San. Forget it, haven't you two had enough of cursing him every day? Tang Long said helplessly. Cursing? Aren't we telling the truth? Tang Ling's face showed disdain. Ignoring Tang Long, he turned and walked back. The two soon stood before the seventh elder's door again. Seventh grandfather, it's me, Tang Ling. I need to see you. Bang bang bang. A series of knocks sounded, but there was no response from inside. Sleeping so soundly? A question flashed in Tang Ling's eyes, and a strange sense of unease settled in his heart. Even a titled expert, though not explicitly stated, could sense the slightest movement, which was almost enough. How could they remain completely unaware of such a commotion? Bang bang bang. Another knocking sound followed, this time much louder. Even Tang Long noticed something amiss and quickly joined in. This also drew the attention of others in the distance, who all turned to look. Come in directly, Tang Ling. His voice trembling with nervousness, pushed open the door. Seventh grandfather, excuse us, but I truly have urgent business with you. The two entered the room, glanced around, and were startled when they saw the bulge under the covers. Seventh grandfather, we didn't expect you to actually be sleeping. We'll leave now. Just as they were about to leave, they saw that the seventh elder remained completely silent, their suspicions growing even stronger. Exchanging a glance, they mustered their courage and cautiously approached the bed. Seeing that the seventh elder made no move, they gently lifted a corner of the covers. Holy crap! Ugh, how could this be? Ugh, when Tang Ling and Tang Long saw the seventh elder's corpse hidden under the blanket, they were horrified, and a wave of nausea instantly washed over them, causing them to vomit involuntarily. Ugh, he killed someone. Only Tang San came out of the room just now. It must be him, that beast Tang San killed the seventh elder. Shouts instantly echoed throughout the entire village, and everyone from the Haoshan sect rushed over upon hearing the news. When they saw the seventh elder's gruesome state, they were all chilled to the bone. The younger generation vomited repeatedly. Tang Xiao and Tang Ming also arrived after receiving the news. When they saw the seventh elder's corpse, they were all stunned on the spot. That bastard! Tang Ming's blood boiled, and he punched the wall, instantly creating a hole in the already flimsy wall. Chase him! I'm going to kill him! Tang Xiao's face was ashen, and he clenched his fists tightly. The seventh elder was wrong, but he was only a bit sharp-tongued. As long as they ignored it, the matter would soon pass. But he never expected his mistress to do something so outrageous. How dare he? Chapter 347. You are the sea god I've chosen. The Clear Sky sect was in chaos. Powerful figures were mobilized one after another. Even Tang Xiao joined the pursuit of Tang San. An atmosphere of anger and killing intent permeated the entire sect, their eyes filled with hatred for Tang Hao and Tang San. However, Tang San had been on the run for a long time, and the Clear Sky sect was not as familiar with the Fierce Claw Mountains as they were with the original sect ruins, ultimately returning empty-handed. Tang Xiao, as the sect leader, you have repeatedly protected Tang San and his son. You cannot escape blame. What do you have to say now, Tang Xiao? You are not worthy of being the sect leader. A barrage of questions and insults followed. Tang Xiao's courtyard was now packed with people. Even the rooftops and the area outside the courtyard were filled with angry Clear Sky sect disciples. each staring at him with furious eyes. Tang Xiao's face was ashen, his head bowed, his fists clenched tightly, silent. He was truly speechless now. Although the past events originated with Tang Hao and his son Tang San, the world is unpredictable, and no one can foresee everything. Although the people of the Clear Sky sect harbored resentment, they still held a degree of leniency towards Tang Hao and his son. With Tang Xiao's mediation, things remained relatively peaceful. Tang Xiao knew of Tang San and Tang Hao's dissatisfaction with the seventh elder, but he hadn't expected Tang San to be so ruthless. Now, with Tang San's intervention, everything was irreversible. From now on, Tang Hao and Tang San are enemies of the Clear Sky sect. If discovered, they may be killed on the spot. Tang Xiao spoke these words with deliberate emphasis, almost through gritted teeth. It wasn't that he didn't want to protect Tang Hao and Tang San, but the current situation left him no room for further discussion. He only hoped that the father and son would never appear before the public again. Even so, the Clear Sky sect members, blinded by anger, were unwilling to let Tang Xiao off easily. However, Tang Xiao's level 97 cultivation was too strong, no one could touch him. Seeing that everyone was gradually calming down, Tang Ming suddenly said, since Tang San was able to assassinate seventh brother, he must have been able to relay our information to the Heaven Dao Empire or the Spirit Empire. This place is no longer safe. I suggest we relocate again. After speaking, Tang Ming glanced at Tang Xiao. Agreed. Moreover, this time the sect's address must not be leaked in the slightest, lest it be spread by those with ulterior motives. The sixth elder's face was grim, and he also glanced at Tang Xiao intentionally or unintentionally. Following the two elders' words, more people joined in. But with the situation on the continent so dire, where should we move to? This question immediately silenced everyone present. The Clear Sky sect had offended too many people, not only the Heaven Dao Empire and the Spirit Hall, but now even the Star Luo Empire. The reason they remained within Star Luo territory was mainly because the Star Luo Empire couldn't do anything to them and still held a sliver of hope for the Clear Sky sect. They also hoped that in a critical moment, the Clear Sky sect could lend a hand to the Star Luo Empire. However, with the Spirit Empire's involvement in the war, the Star Luo Empire's territory shrank further, leaving only 2 provinces and a small kingdom. Going to sea. The Spirit Empire and the Heaven Dao Empire will eventually annex Star Luo. There's no place for us on the continent anymore, only the sea is our way out. Tang Xiao exuded a terrifying aura as he surveyed the crowd. Once we're at sea, our whereabouts will be unknown. I think no one will worry about being exposed, right? Tang Xiao's words startled everyone present, and many eyes lit up. However, many others hesitated, as being far from home was the most unsettling thing. In a secluded mountain hollow, Tang San emerged from a natural earthen cave, checked his location, and quickly disappeared. This was his planned escape route, and reality unfolded exactly as he had imagined. Feeling the surging soul power within him, Tang San's face lit up with joy. Through absorbing the 7th elder and the 5th trial of the Rakshasa god, his soul power had reached level 84. This tremendous improvement filled him with unbridled joy. 6th trial of the Rakshasa god, collect 20,000 portions of despair's breath. Upon hearing the mission requirements, Tang San's gaze sharpened. He was familiar with this ore of despair, it was easily obtained on the battlefield. However, with the Heavenly Dao Empire holding back, the Star Luo Empire was powerless against the Spirit Empire, and casualties had dwindled significantly. It seems this assessment will take some time. Choosing a spot, Tang San disappeared into the forest. Seagate Island, inside the Seagate Temple. Not only Li Sun and Poseidon, but also Ning Rongrong and the other 2 women were present. Li Sun and Ning Rongrong slowly ascended the steps to the central platform of the hall, where a long, black, cone-shaped staff immediately came into view. Poseidon was sitting on the throne at the top of the platform, making a hand gesture that no one could understand. Come forward. Yes, senior. The 2 bowed respectfully and then approached the trident. At this moment, Poseidon recounted the heroic deeds of the sea god. Li Sun, Ning Rongrong, the first 6 trials are merely the foundation of the sea god's 9 trials. The trials to come are the true tests of the god. This weapon has accompanied the sea god throughout his life, and it is also the source of a portion of his divine power. Now, it depends on whether you can gain his approval. I can only offer you 2 words, faith. Only with unwavering faith can you be chosen by him. Li Sun and Ning Rongrong's gazes fell upon the sea god's trident. The exposed shaft of the trident was about 10 feet long, as thick as a child's arm. Although its black surface was dull, faint golden patterns could be seen within. "Brother, why don't you go first?" Ningrongrong asked nervously. Although she had received the god's inheritance, Ningrongrong had always understood what the golden mark on Li Sun's forehead represented. "Rongrong, don't be afraid, don't worry about what the sea god thinks, you are the sea god I've chosen." Li Sun gently stroked Ningrongrong's hair, comforting her. Ningrongrong took a deep breath, clearing her mind of distractions, and summoned her martial soul, Nine Treasures' true body. As several beams of light entered their bodies, Ningrongrong slowly reached for the sea god's trident. An electric shock spread through her body, and a heavy feeling appeared in her hand. To Ningrongrong's surprise, this weapon seemed to have blood flowing within it. The sea god's trident mark on Ningrongrong's brow suddenly lit up, emitting a beam of sea god's light that shone on the long handle of the trident. Boom! The entire hall began to shake, and the Nine Treasures' divine light on Ningrongrong's body became even more dazzling. "I am the sea god my brother has chosen." Ningrongrong kept repeating this sentence in her heart. Gritting her teeth, she placed her other hand on it, and the seemingly heavy sea god's trident was slowly pulled out. Lava seemed to flow through her hands, and a trickle of blood flowed down the black handle of the trident of Poseidon. Nourished by the blood, the divine weapon seemed to become even more active. But just then, the weight intensified, and Ningrongrong stopped halfway through pulling the trident of Poseidon out. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't budge the divine weapon an inch. At that moment, Li Sun wrapped his left arm around Ningrongrong's waist, and his right hand covered hers, holding her small hands. The trident of Poseidon suddenly shone brightly. Chapter 348. Oh, isn't that the sea god? Whoosh! The trident of Poseidon shook violently, seemingly in excitement, its long, black handle radiating intense heat once more. As if grazed by something, blood began to gush from Li Sun's palm, just like Ningrongrong's, flowing down the long handle to the hollow center of the trident, mixing with the blood. With Li Sun's continued exertion, the trident, which Ningrongrong had been unable to raise any further with her strength, slowly rose from the stone platform. Gradually, the two crescent-shaped outer blades detached from the ground, instantly emitting a dazzling golden light, bathing the entire hall in a golden cloak, causing everyone present to squint. Feeling the increasing weight in his hands, Li Sun said, "Rongrong, release the heart of Poseidon." "Okay." Ningrongrong nodded emphatically, a sudden burst of light emanating from between her brows, and the vast ocean universe shield slowly appeared from a point there. Whoosh! The vast ocean universe shield rippled with blue waves the moment it appeared, adding another layer of blue to the golden radiance of the hall. The entire hall was now bathed in a blue-gold light. The vast ocean universe cover, seemingly drawn by a force, slowly floated to the diamond-shaped opening of the trident of the sea god. As if possessing sentience, the opening instantly expanded, allowing the vast ocean universe cover to fit inside. With a clang, the two merged. A vast, surging energy erupted from the trident of the sea god, forcing everyone present to retreat. A golden light appeared. The trident of the sea god slowly shed its blackness, revealing its true form. Meanwhile, a strange phenomenon occurred above Seagull Island. Layers of dark clouds had inexplicably enveloped the island, dimming the light and creating an oppressive atmosphere. As Li Sun and Ningrongrong pulled the trident of the sea god, a golden light shot straight into the sky. At the same time, the 7 sacred pillars on Seagull Island erupted with unprecedented light. Gradually, the dark clouds were enveloped in golden light, slowly transforming into the silhouettes of 2 people. They became increasingly clear, and it was indeed Li Sun embracing Ningrongrong, the two holding the trident of the sea god. "Look, outside the sea god temple," Douluo shouted, pointing at the illusory figures in the sky, causing all the holy pillars to look up. A golden light shone, and the sea god's oppressive aura was visible for miles, causing the inhabitants of Sea God Island to prostrate themselves in worship. All creatures in the sea, sensing the aura emanating from the 2 illusory figures, froze, trembling with fear as they worshipped towards Sea God Island. At this moment, the raging waves subsided, and the sun shone brightly. 10,000 meters deep in the distant sea, the deep-sea demon whale king opened its single eye, looking up venomously at the sky. For countless years, it had sensed the sea god's aura that it loathed. Even the icy sea creatures far beyond the far north sensed it. One by one, the soul beasts raised their heads, gazing towards Sea God Island. In a deep blue world, awe filled the eyes of beautiful mermaids, and they lowered their proud heads. As a new sea god appeared, a stunningly beautiful mermaid with a crown murmured, Inside the sea god's temple, strands of golden light poured into the trident of the sea god. Through his senses, Li Sun was certain this was the legendary power of faith. He reached out, wanting to capture a portion, but found the golden threads passing through his hand and disappearing directly into the trident. It seems that the faith of others is meaningless to me. Li Sun then focused his attention on the trident. If he remembered correctly, this divine weapon weighed a staggering 108,000 jin, approximately 54,000 kg. Wrong, let me slowly loosen my grip. Try to lift it, brother, is it very heavy? Ning Rongrong looked up in confusion. Did you feel it? Poseidon's eyes flashed with approval. Then she said to Ning Rongrong, this trident of Poseidon weighs 108,000 jin, such a thin weapon is so heavy. Ning Rongrong's mouth dropped open in shock as she looked at the long handle, which was as thick as a baby's arm, and fine beads of sweat appeared on her palms. Poseidon smiled and said, don't worry, once you gain the artifact's approval, you don't have to adhere to its original weight. Okay, I'll try. Ning Rongrong swallowed hard, her small hands trembling slightly, seemingly worried that the artifact wouldn't accept her. Li Sun also wanted to know if Ning Rongrong could hold the artifact herself, so he slowly opened his palms, but he didn't relax his attention to avoid hurting Ning Rongrong by accident. Ning Rongrong stared intently at the trident of Poseidon, extremely nervous, her small hands turning white from the effort. Gradually, Li Sun's palms completely loosened, and Ning Rongrong slowly moved her hands holding the trident of Poseidon. Hey, brother, I can lift it. Ning Rongrong shook the trident of Poseidon repeatedly, finding its weight almost negligible. Even with her limited strength, she could lift it. That's good. From now on, you're the real Poseidon. Li Sun smiled and ruffled Ning Rongrong's hair. The little girl was completely absorbed in her excitement, constantly swinging the trident of Poseidon in her hands. Bang! Without paying attention, the trident of Poseidon struck the ground, shattering the hard stone slab. Ning Rongrong was startled by the sudden sound, and Li Sun quickly reached out and grabbed the trident of Poseidon. This weight is really something that could hurt you if you just grasp it or bump into it. You have to be careful. Oh, Ning Rongrong shrank her neck. Brother, you should try this weapon too. If it's handy, you can take it. Anyway, I'm just a support, I won't be charging ahead. Li Sun held the trident of Poseidon in one hand and swung it around a few times. You're the sea god, so this weapon should be used by you. But I might need to borrow it for a while. The trident of Poseidon is powerful, but without the corresponding cultivation technique, it's just a rather heavy weapon, useless to him. At this moment, with the completion of the 7 trials of Poseidon, everyone's rewards arrived as promised. The 7 trials of Poseidon are complete. You accompanied your companions through one test after another, and witnessed the reappearance of the trident of Poseidon. However, due to your relatively little contribution during the process, the reward has been reduced accordingly. Passed all 7 trials, obtained red level authority on Sea God Island, granted the authority of second priest, rewarded with 1 level of soul power, all soul rings increased by 5,000 years, and a divinely bestowed soul ring. A voice appeared in her mind, and 8 soul rings suddenly appeared beneath Tu Yuyan's feet. Their colors changing from 4 purple, 3 black, and 1 red to 2 purple, 5 black, and 1 red. Simultaneously, a small golden ball suddenly floated in front of her. Du Yuyan had absorbed a divinely bestowed soul ring before and naturally knew what it was, carefully storing it away. If she put in more effort, her 9th soul ring would be a 100,000-year red soul ring. Meanwhile, a message also appeared in Zhu Zhuking's mind. 7th trial of the top tier 8 trials completed. Top tier 8 trials, offer devout faith to the sea god. Reward, soul power increased by 10 levels, all soul rings upper limit increased by 10,000 years, red level authority on Sea God Island, and the authority of a candidate high priest. This task can be accepted or rejected, but if rejected, the 7th trial will be considered complete. In the sea god temple in the divine realm, the sea god sat on his throne, rubbing his temples. Luckily, I took a look these past 2 days. I didn't expect that kid to have vaguely guessed the role of the high priest. That one wrong decision back then almost couldn't be undone. Now that Li Sun and Ning Rongrong are about to succeed, there can be no mistakes. Oh, isn't this the sea god? Playing the game of interfering in the lower realms too. A mocking voice suddenly entered the sea god's ears from outside the sea god temple. The sea god's heart stirred, and with a flick of his sleeve, the palace door slowly opened. I was merely observing the situation in the mortal realm out of boredom. I have not interfered with it. Rakshasa god, do not slander me with baseless accusations. I have been observing your sea god island for quite some time now. Seeing is believing. Does the sea god still intend to deny it? A beautiful woman dressed in a purple-black palace gown suddenly appeared at the entrance of the sea god's palace. The sea god slowly rose from his throne, his face serious. Both were first-level gods, neither fearing the other. Rakshasa god, are you threatening me? Threatening? How could I am just delighted that someone is finally like me. The Rakshasa god tossed her long, pale purple hair, so that a certain god king won't keep harping on me all day. The Azure god's pursuit of you is not solely due to your interference in the mortal realm, is it? The sea god's eyes were half closed. How? Both the Azure god and I are gods of evil. Neither is more noble than the other. Slaughter and evil thoughts are inherently intertwined. Where does the opposition come from? The Rakshasa god's lips curled into a sneer. He became a god king, yet he's now restricting me. Sometimes I wonder if the rules these god kings set up are to prevent us from becoming god kings too. The sea god trembled upon hearing this and quickly said, the god kings aren't such narrow-minded people. Gods like you with abundant faith certainly don't think that way, but those like me with little faith, who can only rely on immortal energy and authority to cultivate every day, are in a terrible state. The Rakshasa god sighed, and with a wave of his hand, he drew a wisp of evil thought from the Douluo continent and wrapped it around his index finger. Your nose is quite sensitive. I can't talk to you anymore, I need to go hide. Oh, right, remember you owe me a favor. The Rakshasa god finished speaking and disappeared without waiting for the sea god's reply. A moment later, the Azure god descended. He first looked around, then scanned the surroundings with his divine sense, before landing before the sea god and smiling. It's been a while since we last met. Greetings, Lord Azure god. As a first-level god, the sea god dared not be negligent and quickly bowed. No need for formalities. I merely sensed the Rakshasa god's interference in the mortal realm and came to investigate. The Azure god nodded. What is her purpose in coming here? The Rakshasa god tried to win me over, but considering the rules of the divine realm, I did not agree. The sea god's face was solemn, exuding righteousness. Well then, I won't linger any longer. The Azure god carefully examined the sea god, seeing no change in his expression, and his figure gradually disappeared. The sea god stood still, and seeing that neither of them intended to reappear, slowly sat down. The Azure god had previously come to him regarding Li Sun's divine examination, but at that time he hadn't shown any signs of violating the rules, so his answer was firm. He let Li Sun choose his own divine position. Now, he had to be more careful, but fortunately, the divine examination was more than halfway through, so he should be safe. In the lower realm, inside the sea god's temple, Zhu Xiuqing relayed the voice in her mind to Li Sun. Without hesitation, Li Sun replied, since there's a choice, let's give it up. The 7 trials are the best option. Becoming a high priest wasn't so scary. The main concern was that Zhu Xiuqing, seeking divine succession, couldn't be tainted by the power of other gods. Zhu Xiuqing obediently nodded. Top tier 7 trials completed. You accompanied your companions through trial after trial, witnessing the reappearance of the sea god's trident. However, due to your limited contribution, the rewards were reduced. Passing all 7 trials grants you red level access to Sea God Island, the authority of a second priest, a reward of 1 level of soul power, a 5,000 a year increase in all soul ring cultivation, and a divinely bestowed soul ring. Chapter 349 Fulfilling the Promise. As the selection process ended, Zhu Xiuqing heard the same voice as Du Yuan in her mind. Her previous soul power was level 79, but with the end of the divine test, it jumped to level 80, and the soul rings beneath her feet also changed. Holding the divinely bestowed soul ring floating in front of her, Zhu Xiuqing's heart pounded. With her current strength, simply absorbing the 9th soul ring would allow her to reach 100,000 years of soul power. She hesitated, wondering if she should sacrifice another life to increase the upper limit of her soul rings. Xiuqing, just absorb normally. You can maximize the benefits by using your talent after becoming a god. As if guessing Zhu Xiuqing's thoughts, Li Sun squeezed her small hand. Okay, Zhu Xiuqing took a deep breath, suppressed the thoughts in her heart, and then crushed the divinely bestowed soul ring. As a golden light enveloped her, a sense of familiarity surged into her heart. She didn't know how much time had passed, but with a soul ring inlaid on the outer edge of the 7 soul rings, Zhu Xiuqing's level reached level 82. She officially entered the Soul Douluo realm. The soul rings beneath her feet also reached a configuration of 2 purple, 4 black, and 2 red. Senior Poseidon, what do you think of my proposal? Seeing that Zhu's Huking's side was settled, Li soon cupped his hands to Poseidon. The difficulty of the 8 trials of the sea god has increased, requiring the collection of a complete set of soul bones, 9 soul rings, and the killing of the deep-sea demon whale king within 5 years. Staying here now is meaningless. Poseidon was silent for a moment, seemingly struggling, before finally saying, it's acceptable. In the 7 treasure glazed tile school's headquarters in the Heaven Dao Empire, Ning Fengzi was feeling a headache. To avoid angering Bibi Dong, the Heaven Dao army stationed in Douluo had ceased operations, but for some unknown reason, Bibi Dong was demanding that Heaven Dao siege Jiangxin City. If it were anywhere else, Ning Fengzi might have reluctantly accepted it, but he found it difficult to relinquish such an important location as Jiangxin City. This place was a steel city, encompassing almost all of the Douluo Empire's mineral reserves, and was extremely important to the development of both the 7 treasure glazed tile school and the Heaven Dao Empire. He had sent letters to Qian Douluo and Qian Renxue, but for some reason, the letters arrived in Wuhan City without a reply for half a day. Qian Douluo and Qian Renxue's status was too high. Ordinary people, including some bishops, had difficulty contacting them. Therefore, even Zunayang Tower couldn't guess what had happened. Fortunately, after such a long delay, Bibi Dong hadn't made any other moves. Bibi Dong is surrounding Xingluo without attacking, and now she wants Jiangxin City. What does she want? Ning Fengzi rubbed his throbbing head. If Xiao Sun were here, she could give me some advice. This absolute crushing power left even him feeling somewhat helpless. Who told you to keep getting past that hurdle? Of course Xiao Sun would avoid you a bit, Poison Douluo chuckled, taking a sip of tea. Ning Fengzi was speechless, somewhat amused and exasperated. I've watched him grow up since he was a child. What could I possibly do to him? Just as the two were chatting, they suddenly heard a commotion outside. Their expressions turned serious at the same time. The 7 treasure glazed tile school's headquarters can now be considered the central hub of the entire Heaven Dao Empire. Officials of all ranks who come here are usually very mindful of their appearance and would never make a scene. Ning Fengzi immediately stood up, with Poison Douluo following closely behind, and walked outside. The pavilion outside the courtyard was already crowded with people, but aside from the initial commotion, now everyone was barely daring to breathe. Among the crowd, Li Sun was accompanying a woman with an ethereal air, along with Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, Ning Rongrong, and others. Why aren't you managing your factory? What are you doing here? Ning Fengzi spotted Ning Yuan in the crowd and patted him on the shoulder. Sect Master, Poison Master, Ning Yuan greeted Ning Fengzi and Bone Douluo. Many people here haven't seen Xiao Sun before, so they came to see him after hearing he was back. However, seeing Sword Master and Bone Master standing by, they dared not approach. As the wood-carving business flourished, Li Sun's name spread wider and wider, gaining considerable weight among the common people and some young people. There will be plenty of opportunities to meet in the future. Let these people disperse, so as not to disturb the guest. Ning Fengzi glanced at the unfamiliar woman beside Li Sun. The fact that this young man treated him so well meant that Sword Master and Bone Master dare not speak lightly. Her strength and status must be extraordinary. Isn't that the High Priest of Seagoat Island? Poison Douluo murmured with a hint of solemnity. The High Priest of Seagoat Island. Ning Fengzi's mind raced, and he quickly realized who she was. The limit Douluo you're talking about. At that moment, a storm seemed to rage within him. Quickly pushing through the still lingering crowd, Ning Fengzi's face broke into a smile as he strode into the courtyard. Xiao Sun, you didn't even let me know you were coming back. And who is this, teacher? This is High Priestess Poseidon of Seagoat Island, Li Sun said, rising with a smile. I've heard so much about you. The master and disciple's years of tacit understanding allowed Ning Fengzi to know the meaning behind Li Sun's expression alone. The previous gloom instantly vanished. I've also heard of the 7 treasure glazed tile school on Seagoat Island. Poseidon nodded slightly. Ning Fengzi's smile deepened. You flatter me. The group then began chatting casually, creating a pleasant atmosphere. Before they knew it, the conversation had expanded, ranging from mutual flattery to the cooperation between the Heavenly Dao Empire and Seagoat Island. Although Seagoat Island is rich in resources, it is ultimately limited by its geographical location. I think cooperating with the Heaven Dao Empire would also benefit the residents of Seagoat Island, Poseidon said. However, trade is trade, and going to the island requires careful consideration. After all, Seagoat Island has its own rules, of course. Ning Fengzi nodded and immediately discussed some matters of cooperation, while also mentioning the current predicament facing Heaven Dao. I wonder if Senior Poseidon would be willing to have a name attached to Heaven Dao or the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Poseidon glanced at Li Sun and pondered for a moment. Yes, after all, I can now be considered Li Sun's protector. Hearing this, Ning Fengzi was overjoyed. Having a peak-level expert in charge was a godsend for Heaven Dao. Sect Master, you just said that the Spirit Hall has now stopped its attack on the Douluo Empire. What do you mean? Seeing that the two had finished discussing business, Zhu Xiaogang suddenly spoke up. I don't know the specifics either. Logically speaking, with the Spirit Hall's current strength, the 2 remaining provinces and 1 small principality of the Douluo Empire should have almost no power to resist, but the Spirit Hall hasn't made any major moves, instead deploying its forces on the Douluo Empire's current borders. Ning Fengzi stroked his chin. There's another strange thing. Although there's no large-scale fighting between the 2 countries, the casualties are much higher than before. Zhu Xiaogang fell silent upon hearing this, her head lowered, seemingly lost in thought. More casualties than in a large-scale war. Li Sun tapped his fingers lightly on the table, a thought surfacing in his mind, but whether it was true or not remained to be verified. Night fell. Li Sun reviewed the events of the day in his mind again, then looked at Zhu Xiaogang in his arms with some confusion. Slightly worried. What's wrong? Zhu Xiaogang remained silent for a long time before softly saying, I'm a little worried about my parents, and my eldest sister. She had been in Yondao for nearly 10 years, and apart from meeting Zhu Huayan at the Soul Master competition, she had had no contact with him since. She wasn't worried when Heaven Dao attacked Douluo, because neither Li Sun nor the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School would harm her family. But now, with the Spirit Hall in charge, things were different. Don't worry, once news of Poseidon joining Heaven Dao spreads, we'll go back and see. If your family is willing, we'll bring them back to Heaven Dao. Li Sun gently patted Zhu Xiaokang's back, comforting her. He had promised Zhu Xiaogang when they were children that he would bring her back to the Douluo Empire openly and honestly when he became powerful. Now it was time to fulfill that promise. Time flew by. Poseidon's appearance in the Heaven Dao Empire and her registration in the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School spread like wildfire. In less than half a month, the entire continent knew about her. Many who didn't know her name before gradually internalized the title of one of the strongest human races on the continent through other stories. The entire Heaven Dao Empire was now celebrating. But while some rejoiced, others grieved. When Bibi Dong learned of this news, she instinctively crushed the cup in her hand. As the current pope, she naturally knew what the name Poseidon represented. Although land was different from sea, even if the opponent's strength had declined, she was still a true limit Douluo. She thought things would proceed according to her plan, but she hadn't expected this deviation. It seems I need to speed up my plan. Bibi Dong turned her gaze to the Hall of Offerings. Through continuous probing, she now had a general understanding of Jin Daoliu's condition. Jin Daoliu must have been seriously injured in the battle with the Soul Beast. Enough probing, let's begin. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School's headquarters. Li Sun refused to let Poseidon and Sword Douluo accompany him. With a flying thunder god, he wasn't worried about being in danger with Zhu Xiaogang. After Zhu Xiaogang hugged him tightly from behind, Li Sun controlled his flying sword and instantly took to the air, heading towards the Douluo Empire. After flying for a while, Zhu Xiaogang blushed and whispered in Li Sun's ear, Brother Li Sun, why is your flying sword wobbling when it flies? It's my first time using a flying sword to carry someone, I'm not used to it yet. Li Sun silently apologized to Ning Fengzi. Oh, Zhu Xiaogang seemed to believe him, hugging Li Sun tightly around the waist, silently watching the scenery flashing past below. Xiaogang, don't hold on so tight, it'll be stable once I get used to it. Indeed, as Li Sun said, as time passed, the flying sword became more and more stable and faster. Starfall Empire, Xiangsing City. This coastal city is the current capital of the Starfall Empire. Living off the sea, this city should have been very prosperous, but with the continuous decline of the Starfall Empire, it appeared stagnant and lifeless. And all of this began to change 2 or 3 months ago. At that time, there were 2 factions in the Starfall Empire. One advocated surrendering to the Martial Soul Empire or the Heavenly Dao Empire, while the other advocated fighting to the death. Before Heavenly Tao and Spirit Hall could even attack, the two factions had already begun fighting. The outcome was tragic. The die-hard faction almost completely crushed the surrender faction with overwhelming force, and countless others were implicated. Now, the city gates are strictly guarded, everyone entering or leaving is thoroughly checked, and anyone found out is thrown into prison. Under the Great Purge, everyone lives in fear, and those living here see no hope for the future. Looking at the city wall, about 50 or 60 meters high, Li Sun had no interest in disguising himself to enter. He set up flying thunder god seals in several places. Seizing an opportunity during the shift change, he scooped up Zhu Xiuqing and, in a few flashes, entered the city. Chapter 350 The Papal Decree reappears. Li Sun and Zhu Xiuqing walked through the city. Everywhere they looked, there were crowds of supporters. Judging from their clothing, most of them had fled from other cities. They chose to flee here because Xiaogang city was by the sea. Although the industrial level of this era was not high, fishing was still easy for soul masters, so they didn't have to worry about going hungry. However, Li soon noticed that although these people didn't look hungry, their eyes were lifeless. They leaned against the walls of houses along the street, their faces numb. After a while, a squad of Xingluo guards walked from the city center. Many of the dejected people on the street perked up when they saw the guards, then shrank back. Many others secretly held a wooden statue of him and muttered something. This made Li Sun a little suspicious. However, the two had important business to attend to and couldn't linger, so they headed towards the city center. They found a shop in a corner of a back street, and an old man opened the door a crack. Seeing the old man's wary gaze, Li Sun flipped his hand and took out a token from his soul tool. The old man's eyes lit up at the sight of the token, and his body trembled involuntarily. He quickly opened the door, and after the two entered the room, he peeked out before quickly closing the door. Given the current situation, the 7 treasure glazed tile school's forces had long since withdrawn, leaving only scattered scouts. Young master, what brings you here? The old man quickly made 2 cups of tea after entering the room and then stood respectfully to the side. I've come to handle something. Li Sun immediately inquired about the current situation and location of the Zhu family. Although the Zhu family has always been allied with the Dai family through marriage, something has happened, and they are no longer what they used to be. I heard the entire mansion is under strict control. Young master, you must be careful when you go there. I understand. There's no need for you to do anything in Xingluo anymore. For your safety, contact the rest of you to evacuate. Li Sun's spirits lifted upon hearing this, while Zhu Xiuqing became tense. Thank you, young master. The old man was overjoyed and quickly bowed. Be careful when you leave. Li Sun nodded, then led Zhu Xiuqing out of the room and headed towards the Zhu family mansion. Having been warned, Li Sun didn't enter the mansion directly, but first used his spiritual power to investigate. He found that, as the old man had said, there were more than a dozen people closely watching outside the mansion. Avoiding their gaze, the two slipped into the mansion. Perhaps due to homesickness, the closer Zhu Xiuqing got to her family, the more uneasy she became. Seeing this, Li Sun took Zhu Xiuqing's hand and used his spiritual power to cover the entire mansion, quickly spotting a figure somewhat similar to Zhu Xiuqing. After a moment's thought, he pulled Zhu Xiuqing over. Third sister, you're my little sister? What brings you here? Zhu Xiuqing's third sister looked shocked, jumped up, and quickly pulled the two into the room. What happened? Why are you being so cautious at home? Zhu Xiuqing's third sister's behavior made Li Sun wary. The door closed. Zhu Xiuqing's third sister looked at Li Sun and Zhu Xiuqing with a complicated expression. Actually, this matter might also be related to you. Through the explanation, Li Sun also understood the general situation. Because of the martial soul, the Zhu family had always been allied with the Dai family through marriage, and the Zhu family would unconditionally support most decisions made by the royal family. Fighting the spirit wall to the death had always been the Star Luo Emperor's stance. However, in the past 2 months, the Zhu family had noticed that the Star Luo Emperor's behavior was somewhat strange. After careful investigation, the Zhu family discovered that, at some point, the Star Luo Emperor had developed a tacit understanding with the Spirit Hall. This was why, despite having the strength to crush the Star Luo Empire, the Spirit Hall had stopped its attack and remained besieged on the border. The Star Luo Emperor was, after all, the ruler of a country, and coupled with the iron-fisted methods of the royal family in the past, his control over the empire was extremely strong. The Zhou family's little actions did not escape the ears of the other side and soon reached the Star Luo Emperor's ears. However, despite the fact that the two families had been linked by marriage for generations, and this matter involved spying on the royal family, the relationship between the two families meant that the Zhou family wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But this was only the Zhou family's perspective. The layers of surveillance and control outside the Zhou family residence were the best proof of this. After this incident, a group of members of the Zhou family sat down together to discuss the matter, and finally thought of Li Sun and Zhu Xiuqing. Zhu Xiuqing's identity was not a secret to many people, and Li Sun's name had become increasingly prominent in recent years. If they were absolutely trusted, it would be hard for outsiders not to wonder what role the Zhou family was playing in all of this. Li Sun thought to himself that the reasons were probably more than that. The Star Luo Emperor's move towards the Spirit Empire but not surrendering, and his continued deployment of troops to the front lines to create small-scale wars, were probably inseparable from Bibi Dong. We came here because Xiuqing was worried about you. If you want to leave, I will take you back to the Heavenly Dao Empire. To Heavenly Dao, the third sister, who was talking to Zhu Xiuqing, was taken aback. After a moment, she shook her head. You can't leave. There are both overt and covert agents outside the Zhou family mansion, and the Zhou family has many people. If we dare to make any attempt to escape, it will inevitably cause a chain reaction. Third sister, don't worry, Brother Li Sun has a plan. Zhu Xiuqing held her third sister's hands tightly and said softly. Seeing Zhu Xiuqing's serious expression, the third sister glanced at Li Sun. Are you sure? Did you bring that ultimate expert from Seagoat Island? Li Sun shook his head. Don't worry, we wouldn't have come if we didn't have a way. Alright. I'll go find Mother. The third sister considered for a moment, gritted her teeth, got up, and walked out. Watching Zhu Xiuqing's third sister's back, Li Sun, considering the relationship between the Zhou family and the Dai family, released his spiritual power. Only when he saw that she really had no intention of informing him did he slightly lower his guard. In a short while, the core members of the Zhou family gathered. Among them were Zhu Xiuqing's mother, her second and third sisters, and even her eldest sister, Zhu Huaiyan. Upon inquiry, it was learned that Zhu Huaiyan had returned to the Zhou family after the Star Luo Emperor assisted them. I'll send you all out first, Li Sun said, creating several wooden clones. Just hold on to my clones tightly. Wait a minute, my father is still discussing state affairs in the palace and won't be back until later. What should we do? Zhu Huaiyan asked, her expression complicated. It's alright, you go first. Xiuqing and I will wait here. Too many people would be risky. Without waiting for their reply, Li Sun decisively instructed his clones to use the Flying Thunder God technique to send everyone out. After doing this, he pulled Zhu Xiuqing to a place to sit and waited. They thought they would have to wait very late, but unexpectedly, only half an hour later, trouble struck the Zhou family residence. By this time, squads of soldiers had completely surrounded the Zhou family residence, many of them heavily armed. A tall figure, surrounded by this group, entered the mansion. Beside him stood a relatively thin middle-aged man. Li Sun had anticipated this situation. Not long after the main members of the Zhou family disappeared, the maids and guards in the mansion became anxious, and there were so many that Li Sun didn't even want to bother. The Zhou family mansion was like a sieve, already riddled with holes. Seeing that the man was about to enter the backyard, Li Sun led Zhu Xiuqing out. Father, Zhu Xiuqing called softly, looking at the relatively thin middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's face showed anxiety. He opened his mouth, glanced at the tall man beside him, and then swallowed his words. Oh? You do look somewhat like you did when you were young. You must be Zhu Xiuqing? And the one beside you must be Li Sun, right? The tall man beside Zhu's father sized up Zhu Xiuqing and smiled. Indeed, you are the Star Luo Emperor, Li Sun asked with a smile. Indeed, the Star Luo Emperor nodded, waved to his subordinates behind him, and smiled. May I ask what brings you to Star Luo this time? The guards behind him, receiving instructions, stepped forward in a trembling formation, blocking Li Sun and the Star Luo Emperor. Li Sun's name was now known to everyone in the Star Luo Empire. While not yet at the point of childish obscurity, he was someone no one wanted to face. After all, even the once dominant sect on the continent, the Haoshan sect, had suffered heavy losses at his hands. My wife misses her parents, so I specially accompanied her back to visit them. If my in-laws agree, I'd like to take them to Xiandao to live out their old age, Li Sun met the Star Luo Emperor's gaze and smiled sincerely. The Star Luo Emperor should understand the good intentions of us juniors, right? Indeed, you have some filial piety. The Star Luo Emperor's smile vanished, and he patted Zhu's father on the shoulder. Old Zhu, you've found a good son-in-law. Your Majesty is absolutely right. Zhu's father looked at Zhu's Xiaogang and Li Sun, a smile appearing on his face, and then spoke to the Star Luo Emperor neither humbly nor arrogantly. Upon hearing this, the Star Luo Emperor's smile gradually faded, and the hands on Zhu's father's shoulder tightened slightly. Such a joyous occasion. Old Zhu, why didn't you discuss it with me? Given the relationship between our two families, how could I possibly stop you from going to Xiandao to enjoy your blessings? We've only been here a short time, but I didn't expect your Majesty to arrive so quickly. It's rather unexpected. Seeing the difficulty on Zhu's father's face, Li Sun smiled and said, I just had my mother-in-law's consent, and I've already sent them away. Now it's up to you, father-in-law. I don't think your Majesty would be the kind of villain to obstruct us, would you? Zhu's father's heart stirred upon hearing this, and the smile on his face gradually faded, his entire demeanor becoming more peaceful. He said to Li Sun, that's excellent, old Zhu. It's not that I want to stop you from enjoying your blessings, but the Star Luo Empire can't do without you right now. Do you want to watch Star Luo decline? The Star Luo Emperor's expression changed slightly, and he gripped Zhu's father's shoulder tightly. Your Majesty, you and I both know the current situation in Xingluo, so let's not dwell on this. It seemed the absence of his family had removed Zhu's prudence, his tone unusually calm in the face of the Xingluo Emperor's question. Your Majesty, since my father-in-law has said so, why not let him reunite with his family? Or are you waiting for someone? Li Sun sensed several wisps of energy and narrowed his eyes. A thought flashed through his mind, and a clone split off from behind him, grabbing Zhu Xiaogang's hand and disappearing from the spot. Li Sun's action startled everyone present, who quickly turned to look around, searching for the clone and Zhu Xiaogang. The Xingluo Emperor hadn't expected Li Sun to possess such a special soul skill. However, since Zhu's father had already exposed him, he decided not to hide it any longer. Indeed, I'm waiting for someone. I imagine you know these people better than I do. With a flick of his wrist, a token appeared, flashing before Li Sun's eyes before disappearing. The Pope's decree. Seeing the token in the Star Luo Emperor's hand, Li Sun frowned, becoming even more certain of his suspicions. Li Sun, I didn't expect you to come to Star Luo. Suddenly, a sharp, effeminate voice rang out, followed by three figures appearing in various locations around the Zhu family mansion. So it's Elder Gui, and who is this? Li Sun wasn't surprised by the three's appearance, but he didn't recognize one of them. Saint Dragon Douluo, Tuobazai. Seeing that he was being looked down upon, Tuobazai said coldly in a deep voice. Li Sun looked around. May I ask your purpose? His Holiness the Pope instructed us when we came out that if we saw you, we must invite you to the Spirit Hall. Chrysanthemum Douluo covered his mouth and chuckled. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.